jacket on.
Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. I'm Mike Graham and this of course is the Mike Graham Show. It's 1 minute past 7. We managed to fix the sign, which you'll be pleased to know.
You managed to fix it.
Well, I actually managed to fix the sign. So despite all the tech geniuses around here, I'm now the leading tech genius. So we'll tell you more about that coming up in a little while because there's some podcast news coming as well. This morning, of course, we're still very much in the Anne Widdecombe court because we need to update you on what happened yesterday. For those of you who aren't aware, the police, after having said just the other day that they were keeping an open mind, but there was no political motivation as far as they could tell, have now decided that actually there was political motivation, and they've now rearrested the suspect under terror charges, which means they can hold him for another 14 days without having to release him or charge him. And it also means that the police have once again proven themselves to be not only completely and utterly useless, but willfully misleading the public. Now, people will say to me, well, how do you know they willfully misled the public? Well, I'll tell you why. Because they didn't need to say that there was no political motivation. They didn't need to say that they were keeping an open mind. They could have said one or the other. But clearly when they said there was no political motivation, they didn't know that, and they got it completely wrong. Front page of the Times, Widdecombe murder case taken over by terror police. Daily Mail, Widdecombe murder was political, terror police believe. The Sun, and cops terror probe. The Telegraph, police under fire over Widdecombe charges. Widdecombe murder case taken over by terror cops. Reform MPs hold talks on security. Daily Mail, pages 6 and 7. Let's talk to Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform, who spoke in Parliament yesterday after this news broke. Richard, a very good morning to you.
Mike, well, the horrendous situation got worse yesterday after we spoke first thing, and news came through in the afternoon, as you just touched, being alluded to, that actually counter-terrorism not only were just sort of assisting Devon and Cornwall police with the investigation, but actually they were taking over the whole investigation. And I think that indicates to you the gravity of their concerns about the suspect and potentially other actors, because they've referred to the fact they've re-arrested the suspect. They've referred to acts, plural, of terrorism, and the U-turn and the scale of it, the offer by the Home Secretary, which we're very grateful for, in the House of Commons for Nigel to meet with a committee called RAVEC, which is sort of the highest level of protection offered to VIPs and royals, I think shows that something they have found and seen has caused them very great anxiety. We don't know whether that was specific against certain individuals, specific against reform, or specific against broader high-profile politicians. What we do know is it's a dramatic shift, and that in a sense, all of the stuff that went before, you referred to the police. In my eulogy yesterday, at the end of it, I did just gently suggest to the Home Secretary the police would be better to say, we don't know the motive, we're open-minded, rather than, there seems to be a rush in this country for politically correct purposes to rule out terrorism and to rule out political motivation when they knew nothing to give them that ability to rule that out. And I'm afraid that actually leads to anxiety. And we had a growing concern over the weekend, which you're aware of, and we've been proven 110% right. And people like Dan Hodges and people like the Times group, who frankly have behaved appallingly through this process, they owe me and Reform a very, very significant apology.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you and I spoke yesterday morning, Richard, as you say, around about this time. And I asked the question, and so did you, well, if anti-terror police were involved in his arrest on Saturday, as we understand they were, you know, that doesn't seem like an accident. And surely that would itself would have been something that would have concerned anyone in the Home Office. But it seems as though Home Office officials and or Shabana Mahmood intervened at some point, because it was she that ordered that the investigation be handed over to the anti-terror squad, right?
Correct. And on Saturday evening, you and I were shocked and struck by the fact that it was counter-terrorism who arrested the suspect.
Yeah.
in the middle of Saturday evening, and I suspect that through Sunday they discovered things, and things probably moved at pace without us being informed. We were gaslit again by the Devon and Cornwall police on Sunday morning, again making those claims we've just referred to. But I suspect behind the scenes things were moving at great pace, and arrangements being made to take it away from Devon and Cornwall police, who frankly have got some important lessons to learn.
Yes. Well, I've got a little clip for you. It's only a minute long, but I think it's worth watching once again. And this is, of course, the clip from Sunday when the police came out and made their initial statement about no political involvement.
Continued to develop over the past 24 hours. Shortly after 9 p.m. on Saturday, the 11th of July, a 28-year-old white British man was arrested at an address in Rotherham, South Yorkshire, on suspicion of the murder of Miss Widdicombe. We were supported by officers from Counter-Terrorism Police North East and South Yorkshire Police, who carried out the arrest on behalf of Devon and Cornwall. Miss Widdicombe's family have been informed of the updates and continue to be supported by our specialist officers. Our thoughts remain with her family and friends at this incredibly difficult time. At this point, there is still no information to suggest that this is a terrorism-related incident, and at this point, we are not looking for anyone else in connection with this murder.
So, not a terrorist incident, but now it is. So why on earth they would say such a thing? Because, I mean, you must now be concerned. They're talking about communist literature being found at the home of the suspect. You must now be concerned about whether there is a wider issue here, that whether there are other people involved, because for them to say we're not looking for anybody else could also be wrong. We don't really know. I mean, how can you have any trust in this investigation?
We don't know, but our anxiety, as I say, has been growing every half day since, really since sort of, I think, Saturday morning. And that level of anxiety and concern has been proven to be 110% correct.
Right.
We've just had that sense that this is not playing out as the police, I think now naively thought that this was just a local burglary gone wrong. I mean, there was just never any evidence that was credible, frankly. Right. And I'm sure we'll learn a lot more over the next 48 hours. I asked the Home Secretary to ensure we were given regular updates to everybody, because it's of concern to anybody in public life of any political party or none.
Of course. And Nigel Farage, your party leader, has said to the Home Secretary, thank you very much for the opportunity to have this meeting, but he's also asked for coverage perhaps to extend security-wise to beyond MPs for reform, and also too, because obviously Anne Widdicombe wasn't an MP. How hopeful are you that could be the case, that would be applied?
Yeah, I think there's a sea change gone on in parliamentary authorities in the last 24 hours. And I've been critical of them in recent months, and I've sort of held back, but I've launched in over the last 24 hours with those criticisms. I think they are waking up to the realities of modern day, the way that these bloggers, what I call waffly, they walk abuse, they film, they intimidate, they get right in your face with their mobile phones, and they're shouting and they're harassing, and it can be pretty hairy. And the most hairy place of all is a quarter of a mile outside the parliamentary fence. And so there'll be hopefully a major reassessment of that, and a reassessment of high-profile politicians going to events. I've been denied any security by Parliament for the last 6 months, despite having received a pretty unpleasant incident just before Christmas.
Yeah.
And and then you get people of the Times Group, including their sort of editors and senior journalists, just sort of playing games with headlines, inferring that we're doing this for propaganda. Well, just give us an apology. You got it badly wrong, and your hatred and despising of Nigel and Reform and myself, fine, you're allowed that opinion if you want, but if you're trying to run a credible, serious newspaper, don't put it onto headlines like that just encourage other potential nut jobs or whatever to carry it out. And yeah, so we're in a pretty bad place, actually. with the mainstream media on their ceaseless, relentless, politically motivated smear campaign. That is what it is by the Times Group and by others. And we're just calling it out. And if they
Yeah.
want war, they'll get war.
Well, I mean, interesting to see that Dan Hodges, for once, doesn't actually have a piece in the paper today. Somebody at the Mail perhaps has seen the light and decided that, maybe old, the Farage derangement syndrome that he seems to be suffering from needs some serious treatment. But equally, James O'Brien returned from holiday yesterday, and I hate to mention his name on my show because he's an odious character, and launched another vitriolic, really quite nasty attack on Nigel Farage. And I'm not actually going to play the clip because I don't want to give him the publicity, but he's another one that needs reining in a bit, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, some of these people just need help, but the Times Group, they should know better. And they now have a choice to make. I mean, they've got a whole unit, a whole podcast investigation unit that's been set up for give or take 6 months, basically to investigate all of us senior figures at Reform and to spread smears, discredit, labelling, libeling, innuendo, and lies. And I'm calling it out. I'm sick of it. We see you. We know what you're doing. And I think these people have overreached themselves. And I think the public at large can see and smell this for what it is. Yeah.
Well, if you take it back a step and sort of retread where they've come from, it's almost been sort of playing by a book of this is how you discredit an organisation. They started with you, they moved on to your companies, then they moved on to Nigel Farage, then they moved on to George Cottrell, and who knows what else.
In deep coordination with the Guardian. Who have been in receipt of illegally obtained material that they know is illegal, that's against the law, and then they've published it of highly confidential material from different banks and different bank managers within those banks, of my bank transfers, my statements, and conversations and transactions, and they thought it was appropriate at the National Crime Agency just to leak this stuff. We don't know how senior this has gone, but it's unbelievably serious. And this is all part of a deep state coordinated campaign against us. And we're well aware of it. And as I say, over the coming days and weeks, people will hear a lot more from us about this.
Richard Tice, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Richard Tice, Deputy Leader there of Reform. We've got a big show for you today, guys. Colin Sutton's going to come back on. We'll get his view on that police U-turn once again. Will Geddes is here. He'll have something to say, no doubt, about what's been revealed overnight as far as this communist literature is that's been found inside the home of the suspect, as far as we know. Siobhan White is going to be here as well. We'll talk to David Vance, Godfrey Bloom as well, and also Lee Nallalingam is here as well. Lee, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Good to see you.
Always.
Extraordinary times. Only yesterday, Richard and I were talking about how ludicrous the police investigation was, how ludicrous it was that they were saying things which they couldn't possibly know, contradicting themselves, saying that they were keeping an open mind, but it definitely wasn't political. And then suddenly, we hear that it's political.
Of course it was. It's one of those things where at what point do you assume somebody driving hundreds of miles across the country commits a heinous act, gets back in the car, drives back hundreds of miles,
has a pizza,
and that's apparently just a complete coincidence, a random act of violence. While he was on his drive down to Devon, he got a bit of road rage and just decided to lash out. It's just so utterly ridiculous. And it's at the point that it's a consistent pattern, whether it's this, whether it's Southport. I mean, what's going on with their public authorities?
But it's what they don't want to say, clearly, isn't it? I mean, clearly the police wanted to make out, and very clearly make out, that it was a white British man that they had sought for the killing.
Which, as soon as you hear that, I thought that was suspect.
Well, of course you do. And again, they wanted to make out that it wasn't political, that it wasn't in any way linked to any kind of terror threat. And again, they couldn't say that without knowing that it was true, but they did.
And that's it. When did our police become politicians?
Yeah.
You know, they've got one job, right? The job is to catch the bad people, to
Yes.
stop them doing bad things.
Yes.
They're not here to manage public perceptions or optics or toe political lines.
And all this cobblers about, you know, we would ask people not to speculate. Well, really? Honestly, is that the best you can do?
Well,
Don't
that's the
speculate? Well, why haven't you don't tell us lies then?
Well, that's it. Because I think in the 24 hours after the news broke, I don't think any of us were speculating. Everyone had assumed that it was just a horrible set of circumstance in terms of, obviously, Anne was 78, I believe.
What you mean before we knew
we knew she was murdered,
Yeah,
right?
but that's
No,
another one.
there was no speculation at all then, right?
No.
Everyone just had assumed, she seemed okay.
Yeah.
She was on the your show a couple of days before. And unfortunately, these things happen,
Yeah.
right? But as soon as it came out that she had been potentially murdered, well, you've got to go
Which
to
was
that
Friday
thought
afternoon.
process,
And the
right?
point is that my question is still, and I asked this question actually to Colin Sutton yesterday, and he answered it very well, because I said, you know, how is it possible that somebody gets discovered in the position that she was in, and the people who discover her don't know that it's a murder?
Yeah.
Because I had my doubts about that. But he said that nowadays you don't need to have a doctor in attendance to have somebody declared dead anymore. It used to be the case that you did. But sometimes now the paramedics can do it, and they may not be as qualified to be able to determine whether there's been foul play. But I find that still quite hard to believe. That you would think that somebody who was injured had been injured in a particular way rather than in a different way. So there's still so many questions, and I on Sunday was asking a lot of these questions, and I made it very clear in the video that I put out that these are not speculative questions, these are just questions.
They are just
And
questions.
to ask a question is not speculation.
Exactly that.
And it's been proven yet again that Nigel Farage and Reform and myself were correct to ask those questions. Because at the end of the day, they've been forced to admit that they got it wrong.
And they will get it
Massively.
wrong again.
And also, as I said to Richard Tice, because Richard Tice, like many other high-profile MPs, is very concerned for his own safety and the safety of his colleagues, because how do we now know that when they said they're not looking for anybody else, that there isn't somebody else involved? How do we know that? Because you now can't trust anything the police have said.
You can't trust anything the police have said. In fact, I threw an event last year, bit of a fundraiser for Reform actually, in East London, and in the building next to it, they actually had pictures of Reform figures in Bethnal Green, with signs literally saying "wanted, dead or alive."
Yeah.
And that is the environment
Yeah.
Reform are operating in at the moment. And
unfortunately, as Richard Tice just explained there very adequately, the media, or sections of the media certainly, are very much complicit in creating that atmosphere.
They're absolutely
Which is
complicit.
entirely wrong, in my view.
No, it's very, very hard to disagree with that, Mike. It is complicity. I mean, I've been very vocal on social media, standing up for Nigel and Richard over the past few weeks, because it's just wrong. It's clearly nonsense. I mean, if you look at the stuff they're saying about Richard and his tax, he paid his tax. It's just that the entire argument is about, because of the technicalities, it was.
Well, the most ridiculous recent story, I think, over the weekend was when, again, the Times or the Sunday Times, about how Nigel Farage rents himself a studio, right, and charges it off, which is entirely within the tax law.
Yeah.
It's £10,000. They make out it's £50,000.
Because
Well,
it's
it's
£5
£10,000 over 5 years, which makes £50,000. An absolute drop in the ocean when you talk to HMRC about the amounts of money that the MPs are able to avoid paying tax on, and all their expenses that they claim, and all of that, and it's all completely out of proportion.
All completely out of proportion, and it is, as Richard says, it is a complete smear campaign.
Yeah.
It is designed to create a narrative. It is literally, in the case of the story you just highlighted, quoting completely legal things that people in those positions do.
Yeah.
And trying to dress it up as something. Yet at the same time, there's nothing at all about, what's his name, Dal Vince and his $5 million donation and his $100 million contracts he gets off of the back of that.
If you like that story, you might like the one about the £4 million that was donated from a hedge fund in the Cayman Islands to the Labour Party just before they became the government.
Exactly.
Or you might want to look
and
at
that was an offshore, offshore fund.
Offshore fund.
They don't like that.
We don't know
they?
where that money came from. You might also want to ask about the £137 million donated or given it out in contracts from the government to 20 of the biggest Labour Party donors. An incredible figure that came out. I don't know if you saw this yesterday.
I saw that.
Individuals, things like, say, Microsoft, giving them something like, 100,000 quid.
And then getting tens of millions, hundreds of millions.
Millions and millions of pounds in contracts. And, what are you telling me, that's not corrupt?
Exactly.
Not worthy of a Times investigation or a podcast, possibly?
Of course not, because they are the good guys, Mike, in terms of the establishment, right? They can't. It's all a necessary set of transactions. There's nothing untoward there at all.
No, of course not.
It's all. It's become so crystal clear and evident as to the game we're in.
They're not even hiding it.
They're not hiding it anymore. It is out.
But I think they've run up against a bit of a brick wall now, because they're going to have to ease it. They're going to have to ratchet it down somewhat.
I don't think they will, though. I don't think they have that self-awareness. It's a bit like what they did in America with Trump. It's just that they keep on doubling down. They've got their talking points, because in their world, in their circle of, individuals, they all think the same way.
Yeah.
And they're completely detached from what the average person on the street thinks. So I think in their mind, they sat there and they're all giving each other a slap on the back, and always in that landed well.
Yeah.
And the people have had enough.
Yeah.
It's just going to accelerate everything we are seeing.
Yeah. And speaking of, the good guys, Andy Burnham is now preparing himself for the coronation, isn't he?
Has he given a speech yet?
He hasn't. People are now saying, with more louder and much more demonstrative voices, that he needs to appear in Parliament before the summer recess.
He's just going to turn up. I'm Prime Minister now, guys.
Which will be, I believe, a week on Thursday, I think, is the final day of Parliament, or maybe a week on Wednesday. But he will become, if all goes well for him, and there doesn't seem to be any reason for it not to happen, he will become Prime Minister next Monday, day after the World Cup final. And
still no scrutiny. And that's what I think is behind a lot of this as well.
Yeah.
It is to turn the attention away from the scrutiny on Andy Burnham.
Yeah.
Because if you start to look, he's already dived in the opinion polls.
Yeah, well, because as soon as he becomes something other than, I'm Mr. Nice Guy from the north of England, and I like whippets and flat cups and meat pies and football and all that nonsense, people go, well, yeah, but what do you actually believe in? I think I'll put some more taxes up. Everybody goes, oh, hang on a minute.
38 billion more. I read yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Your pension, any capital gains that you've got, anything that they can get their hands on. And how about this, right? For a man of principle, Ed Miliband, according to the Telegraph this morning, apparently is now going to agree to approve drilling in the North Sea to calm the markets, right? This is the man who said that they should never do it because it's dangerous, it will damage the planet, it will kill everybody off prematurely. But because he wants to be Chancellor of the Exchequer, he's willing to sacrifice his beliefs and his long-held views on net zero.
And it's something you and I talk about a lot. It's literally governing by opinion poll. And that is the problem with almost our entire political class. What's the saying is, if you don't like these principles, I have some more.
I have some more principles. I've got others. Absolutely right.
It is all a show.
But what a ghastly crowd of people they are.
They are. And like I say, you can attach that statement to, I think, out of 650 of them, probably about 630 of them, I imagine, across political parties at the same time. Well,
also, we seem to be getting a government of kind of appeasement, not of the population, but of the Labour Party.
It is.
So that all of the things that Burnham's talking about doing, he's doing in order to satisfy the backbenchers in the Parliamentary Labour Party. Well, that's not democracy.
It is not.
Is it?
It is the definition of party before country.
Yeah.
And that is, again, I can't fathom, and I know I'm new to this political world, but I cannot fathom a thought process where you sit there and walk into a room and go, well, how do we keep our people happy regardless of the consequences to the country? And it's just making decisions based on who might like it and who might vote for them. And you cannot run a country that way. And the truth is, we've been run that way for 30 years now, across two sets of parties, which is why we had a set of Tories as well that made loads of promises for 14 years and never backed any of them up.
One of which was about immigration continually.
Continuously, 5 elections, tens of thousands. Turns out that meant 1 million.
Indeed. And yesterday, Shabana Mahmood, amongst many others, it was quite a busy day in Parliament yesterday. Shabana Mahmood got up to talk about a great many things, including this change in the law so they can deport this scumbag,
Yes.
grooming gang, mastermind, child rapist. But of course, reading between the lines in the papers this morning, it would appear that, in fact, the law is not going to be changed for at least a year.
It
And
won't.
in fact, until and unless Pakistan agree to take him back, he's not going to be deported anyway.
Right, and this is where...
So Shabana Mahmood, the tough Home Secretary, appears to be powerless to get rid of this bloke.
And I guarantee she knows exactly what she needs to do it.
Yeah.
She's not allowed to do it. We all knew this was going to be the case. We need leaders again. The problem is we've got too many people who are acting like middle managers. Right? The solution to this is very simple. You can change the law within a few weeks. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
You put the proposal there, you vote for it, it gets done. You
Yeah.
make a decision. At the same time, just stick the bloke on a plane.
Yeah.
Right?
One of the things they were arguing about yesterday was, we can't deport him because there's no direct flight between Pakistan
Don't care.
and Britain. Well, it doesn't seem to stop them coming here, does it?
Right? Don't care.
No?
Don't care. Right? Put the bloke on a plane.
Yeah.
If Pakistan won't take him back, well, if you freeze their visas,
Yeah.
I guarantee within 2 weeks he's back in Pakistan.
Yeah, of course.
It's really not rocket science, but you've got to have the courage to do that.
Yeah.
And the problem is none of them want to step out of line. You know, that we have a group of politicians who have got to where they are simply by towing the line, not saying anything, having no thoughts of their
Yeah.
own.
I would say to them,
the
you
bloke on a
walk
plane.
straight down to the Pakistan embassy and you say, right, you lot, unless you agree to take
Yep.
this guy back, you're all going.
Yeah.
And then this
Shut
nice
down-
cushy
shut
lifestyle
down
that
the
you've got
embassy,
in Mayfair,
cut it all off.
nice flat in,
Yep.
the Dorchester Quarry, you'll
Cut
be
off
going back to
the
Islamabad.
foreign aid, cut off the visas, cut off, access to banking. It's very simple, and it's not about, I've got nothing against Pakistan as a whole. I've never been there. I'm sure there are very nice people in Pakistan, but some of them maybe not the chap who's we're trying to deport.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're not going to play ball, well then, what are we doing? Why are we just there? Like, we're going to carry on giving you visas and
Nothing we
hundreds of
can
millions
do.
of pounds.
No, I know. Shocking, isn't it?
C'est la vie. No, I'm sorry. The world doesn't work that way. We need some courage again.
Yeah, absolutely right. How about this one, right? Another story off to the side, it's on the front of the Telegraph. There's a hosepipe ban in some parts of the UK.
I had to double check this one when I
Notably
heard
in the
about
south
this.
of England, one of the companies imposing its Southern Water, who put out a massive, because I saw it, email at the weekend asking people, saying it's only voluntary, but please don't use water because we haven't got enough. And if there isn't enough for you, then it will just get worse for everybody else. They've now said, if you're on benefits, the hosepipe ban doesn't apply to you. You use as much water as you like. What the hell's that all about? So a two-tier water supply now.
So we've got two-tier everything now. It's just...
So they're not even paying for their own water, and they can
Right.
use as much of it as they like.
Of course they can, because it's a hierarchy of
Vulnerable
victims
people.
or whatever they
I
call
mean, it's
it.
unbelievable, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. Who sits there and makes these decisions? I can picture I don't know, Doris sat there in HR who's trying to be really, really well-meaning
Yeah.
and considerate and show how empathetic they are, and it's just completely detached from reality.
Well, if they want to be empathetic and show how sympathetic they are to people, how about you stop putting the bleeding bills up?
Well, that'd
which
be
they
nice,
keep
wouldn't
doing.
it?
They put them up about 25-30% a year.
And do you know what would be even better than that? Actually build a bloody new reservoir. They haven't built one in like 30 years. The reason we actually don't have enough water is simply they haven't invested in the infrastructure.
But again, that's because, and nobody's ever been able to explain this to me, but they say that the building of reservoirs is somehow apparently anti the environment.
It is because
Why?
because you divert water flows and it messes with habitats and things like that. Which
Well, how about our habitat?
and that's
You know.
that's the point, right? Like, look, if you talk to any sane individual, do we want nuclear waste being pumped into the River Thames? Of course not. Right? No one's going to support that.
Yeah.
At the same time, look, reservoirs, it's got to happen. You've got to get that balance right. It's common sense.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this seems to be the only home of common sense. Mike.
And it's the real home of common sense. That's what we do here. And finally, this is one for Pooch, which we got a bit wound up about earlier on today. If you own an electric car, and they're going to bring in this pay-per-mile business, right? This is
Brilliant.
what they're saying. The likes of Sadiq Khan want to make you pay to drive around London. But now, it's worse than that, because now they want to make you pay for driving around on the continent. So that when you go to France or Spain or Belgium,
they're going to tax you for those.
they're going to hit you up for whatever it is the mileage that you're doing, and you have to pay the government in the UK.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're getting away with that.
Yeah, there's that's a lawsuit waiting to happen, I think.
Isn't it?
There's
I mean, I think the
no way they can
original
enforce
plan
that.
is that you're going to self-report. Well, who's going to do that?
Yeah.
You're going to call them up and go, oh, sorry, I'd like to send you some money. I've been driving around in France for a couple of weeks and I've done about 1,000 miles. How much would you like?
Yeah, but I tell you what.
You're having a laugh.
But this is the thing as well.
A lot of rustling going on in the background.
There are a handful of people that
I think
will.
Will Geddes has brought some goodies in, as he
It looks
normally
very
does.
good. He's got his Starbucks in there.
No, I can't eat them on the air. There's no point. I can't do it.
But it is. There will be some nice middle class types that will do their civic duty and actually report legitimately.
Idiots, in other words.
Basically,
Yeah.
and then the rest of the
Don't encourage
going to
them.
take them for mugs.
Yeah.
And it's. I tell you what I love most about this story is didn't Sadiq Khan, the whole congestion charge or the ULEZ and so on, it was all used as an incentive, wasn't it, to get people to go to electric. And one of the things they said is, well, as a result of it, if you're electric, we're not going to tax you.
Yeah.
It turns out, now they've realised that people have gone over it. Yeah.
Years ago when they were all saying, oh, don't worry, you won't have to pay road tax, it'll be great. I was like, yes, but when you have a deficit of 40 billion, because that's what you collect in road tax, suddenly you're going to have to go, maybe we need that money, we'll have to charge them. And that's what's happening.
And they do like the money.
Yeah,
So-
they do. Unbelievable. Lee, good to see you, man.
Always good to see you.
Always good to talk about the stories in the papers. There's loads going on this morning. Will Geddes, as I say, is here. Godfrey Bloom. Colin Sutton joins us later. Siobhan White as well. Also Ted Newson. He'll have something to say, no doubt, about the EVs and the National Grid as well. Apparently there's been a cover-up. They nearly came close to blackouts quite recently. And they tried to tell us it wasn't happening. Why are we being lied to all the time? What is going on? The police are lying to us. The people at the National Grid are lying to us. Politicians are lying to us. When can we get somebody to tell us the truth? That would be nice, wouldn't it? Let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Hello everyone, Edward the News Hughes here with your Tuesday Bulletin. Andy Burnham is on track to become the UK's next Prime Minister. The former Greater Manchester Mayor has secured overwhelming support from Labour MPs, positioning him to replace Keir Starmer without a full contest or general election. He's expected to enter Downing Street around July 20th. In a major development, counter-terrorism police have taken over the murder investigation into former Minister Anne Widdecombe. She was found dead at her Devon home with serious injuries last week. A man was arrested and later rearrested on terrorism-related suspicions after new evidence emerged. The probe is now treated as potentially politically motivated. Other headlines include UK moves to sanction Russian cyber networks and designate Iran's IRGC, alongside concerns over heatwave impacts. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Back.
Welcome back to the Mike Graham Show at 7:34. Coming up, Russell Quirk is here. We're going to speak to him in a mo. Will Geddes is here. Will, very good morning to you. Nice to see you.
Good morning to you, sir.
Thank you very much for the goodies. For you,
Pleasure.
what the Substack is out there. Apparently there's been a bit of a hiccup on the Substack firing again, so I don't know what happened there, but I'm terribly sorry. We'll be certainly, you'll be able to watch it later. But unfortunately, if it doesn't fire on the button, then it doesn't go out until a bit later on. So we'll do our best to fix that for you. Coming up, we're going to be talking about, obviously, the state of the police, the state of play, because it seems as though not only was I right, but also the reform guys were right, that it wasn't simply some kind of random act that was resulted in the death of murder of Anne Widdecombe. It was a very much a political act, and certainly now what appears to be some kind of act of terrorism, despite the fact that they denied that either it was terrorism or political. So how can they get it so wrong, Will?
I have no idea, Mike. I have absolutely no idea. It's the constabulary of Keystone, isn't it? I mean, it's just the most ridiculous management of information. You would have thought these guys would have learned by now. And you know, the rotten thing is that the, ground level coppers who are out there working hard, doing their job, are getting besmirched by the senior management who just simply cannot give a straight story. I mean, that's what's so baffling.
It seems to me, it's almost as though they construct what they want the narrative to be, and then they say, right, we'll go and give a press conference and we'll say this.
Yeah.
And nobody's saying to them, well, hang on a minute, how can you say that? Because, I mean, even on Sunday I was saying, how is it possible that you can keep an open mind while at the same time saying it's not political?
Yeah, exactly.
That's not keeping an open mind,
But
is
it's
it?
not the first time, Mike.
No.
It's not the first time. I mean, they made it very clear right from the get-go. within a space, and bearing in mind how social media moves so damn quickly, the fact that everybody could work out they hadn't even interviewed the suspect by that time, and they're discounting it as a terrorism event. When I did quite a few interviews over the weekend on it, and the one thing I was very cautious to do, because I've been called out in the past, was to say, look, we have to be very grey about what the potential motive might have been.
Yeah.
But you cannot, because you can't determine what the motive is, and the police weren't able to determine what the motive is, then you've got to keep it very, very open. You can't say, I'm going to discount terrorism, when this is an MP, and this is attached to probably the party, the one party that actually has probably created this 3 times the amount of threats against MPs generally since 2019.
Yeah. And also the fact that they used the counter-terror police to make the arrest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you go, well, what did you do that for? Because if it wasn't terrorist related, surely South Yorkshire Police could have done it on their own.
Yes.
But they didn't. They had counter-terror with them. So they must have known that there was some suggestion that they had to involve them.
Yeah.
So to then come out and say there's no suggestion that there's any, motive regarding politics, it's just insane.
It is insane, because even if you try and look at it from a conspiracy point, and you go, okay, well, there must have been some reasoning behind why they did that. There is no logic.
No.
Zero logic.
There isn't.
All it does is it creates more and more distrust by the general public in the police, which is
Well, we've got a poll,
they're suffering the worst morale.
Have we got a poll?
Yeah,
Anyway.
I get it.
Let's have a look at the poll, because we actually asked the question this morning.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll be interested to see what the people have to say, although I've got my suspicions what their answers will be. And it's who do you trust the most?
Yeah.
I think. And,
Let's have a look.
The poll would count, I believe, the police. Let's have a look. The police, Keir Starmer, Andy Burnham, or Billy Lyle.
Competition wasn't
Billy
high.
Lyle comes up as the one you trust the most, 95%.
3,000 even.
Yeah, Billy
Hardly
Lyle.
surprising.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look at that. 1% Keir Starmer, 1% Andy Burnham, 3% the police.
Wow.
And that's
I
where
get
we
the
are.
Keir Starmer, Andy Burnham thing, but the police, that just tells you the state this country's in right now,
It
doesn't
does.
it?
That's the trouble. I mean, and that's the comments that I've been getting ever since Friday, because of the way the police have. But again, having been in the spotlight so many times over Henry Novak, having been in the spotlight over Southport, having been in the spotlight over countless other stories we could mention.
Yeah.
They somehow continue to get it wrong.
And
it's hard to be that useless.
It is, but also it's this two-tier policing, which will constantly echo, as a very important and integral part of what, unfortunately, the police is represented as. And you made a very good point earlier, Mike, when you were talking about some of the left-wingy MPs making these really disgusting comments about Anne and that situation, and yet Lucy Connolly gets thrown away, behind bars. And they can just carry on regardless.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell?
I know.
Here, mate.
Absolutely right. Sorry?
Comment.
This is from Fraser, who says, I've complained to, what does that say, Tony?
Yeah, to
Oh, so he's answering somebody else. I've complained to the principal of Aberdeen University. I'm a graduate about that fool's cruel remark rate, and some people are truly disgusting. Yeah, and that's that Heather character, who's a trans extremist who said some really, really horrible things. There is an investigation supposedly going on at Edinburgh University, but Aberdeen University rather. But I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't just kick the guy out.
Yeah.
But Russell Quirk is here, so let us join Russell this morning as well. Russell, very good morning to you.
Good morning. How you doing?
Yeah, very well, very well. I mean, once again, I'm afraid you don't like to say we told you so, but we told you so. Nigel Farage told them. Richard Tice was on this show yesterday telling them. I told them at the weekend, the police have got it massively wrong again. And maybe, I don't know whether you think this is going to be the case, but maybe, just maybe, some of this nastiness against reform will stop now.
Well, I'm not sure it will, to be honest. Unfortunately, the more of a mark that reform make, the more popular they get, the more parts of the left decide that they want to circumvent democracy and somehow bring reform and its central figures down anyway. I mean, it's literally anarchy, isn't it? I mean, we're supposed to be, albeit waning, we're supposed to be a democratic society. And look, with regard to the police, I mean, how many times have we sat on this show talking about the ineptitude of the senior leadership of the British police. These morons that seem to be recruited because, I don't know, they've got a degree in knitting or something from, Cardiff Polytechnic, that end up running the higher echelons of the police forces, but have effectively learnt policing, with big inverted commas, in a classroom rather than on the streets. We clearly need people at the top of British policing that have done the job, have nicked a few baddies, really understand the psyche of criminals. We need to bring back a Burnside-like chap, don't we?
Yeah.
Or chapettes. No, seriously, and there are some, you've got the likes of Norman Brennan and Peter Blexley and so on that frankly wouldn't last 30 seconds in British police now because they've been kicked out because they have an opinion or because, they're a little bit firm. I made a list earlier on, Mike. I mean, this is really incredible, I think. The amount of faux pas that have been made by British police. And I asked ChatGPT this. Can you give me a list of the instances where British police have messed up an investigation? Either just they haven't investigated it properly, or particularly as in this case, they've come out with some kind of weird warped narrative. We're not if they firstly arrested the wrong person, as in Anne Widdecombe's case, but then insisted that it wasn't political or terrorist, even though you think, well, hang on a second, you haven't even interviewed the guy yet. Then they let him go. Then they nick somebody else. Immediately resort to this narrative, which is it's not political, it's not terrorism. And then all of a sudden, as Nigel pointed out, hang on, this stinks. This is some learning difficulties chap from 300 miles away, driving a car that he hasn't used for months. I mean, it's all weird, right? It's all very, very odd. It's not a burglary gone wrong. It's very clearly something much more sinister. So Nigel, you, and most of us knew 4 days ago this didn't seem right. Obviously, the murder isn't right. That's obviously not the point of what I'm saying. But now, yes, we're all saying, yeah, I told you so. But we're not the police, right? The police are supposed to be the ones that are ahead of us, second guessing, presupposing, working out exactly. Hang on, the issue here clearly is one of malice, political motivation, or whatever, rather than a burglary gone wrong. So how do we, as ordinary members of the media and the public, know what's going on in a criminal's mind? How are we able to presuppose, days before senior police officers do the same thing? So anyway, that list, by the way, I won't go through it all because I think most of it's been well rehearsed, but it immediately came up with 20 recent instances where the police have messed up an investigation or got the narrative wrong. And then here's the icing on the cake. Got the narrative wrong many, many times, like with Henry Novak, for instance, and then blamed, and Axel Rudibicana, blamed the public for the fallout that we are speculating. And because the public, how dare you speculate as a body of people? As a consequence of that, that's why apparently these things go wrong.
I know, quite incredible, isn't it? And the other thing that I said to Richard Tice this morning, and Will, you might want to join in on this conversation as well. How do you now know that the other assertion they made, which was that we're not looking for anybody else, is true either? Because it might not be. And one of the things that Nigel Farage had made clear to Shabana Mahmood yesterday about protection for reform politicians is that, he would like it to extend beyond Parliament, beyond the MPs that they've got, the 8 MPs, and to probably people like yourself. And I was going to ask you whether you feel in any way, do you feel in any way kind of threatened? Are you worried that there might be people out there who are making concerted efforts to, to cause acts of harm?
Well, look, I can tell you that within Reform Essex, where obviously I'm Deputy Leader of Essex County Council, there have been a lot of concerns raised to me directly by Reform councillors, and in particular in our Reform WhatsApp group, particularly by females, actually, by female councillors saying, I'm really worried. They are really genuinely concerned. And the concern, obviously, for our safety, because we have a reform label. We also, therefore, are seen to be, outspoken, opinionated. Idiots would say that we're far right, which obviously is absolute bunkum. But there's now this reality that, in the wake of Joe Cox and David Amos and now, of course, Anne, is anybody in politics safe? And the big concern I have there, apart from obviously the safety of all politicians, MPs, councillors, activists, political commentators. I mean, Jill Dando, right? You, Mike, you fall into that category. You're an outspoken, principled individual. Are you worried, right? I mean, we get to this situation now where I think, we've got a council meeting today at 1:00 where there is a protest by the Essex LGBT community, right? Good luck to them. They'll turn up. Hopefully they'll behave themselves. It will be very colourful. Be very, very colourful. There are some of our members in Essex extremely concerned that might turn ugly.
Yeah.
And I had to say to the chairman of the council, Karen McIver, last night, are we prepared? And she is definitely, because she's formidable. But we've got security. Do we need more? Is there a police presence? I shouldn't have to think like that. In 2026, Essex, in a democratic society where today we want to debate our 100-day plan, the fact that, I don't want to make this an advert for Essex County Council Reform Group, but the fact that we're going to laud that we've increased our pothole repairs by 30% year on year, blah, 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 all these wonderful, wonderful things. And I'm sitting there thinking, have we got to worry about someone launching themselves at us or throwing something at us? But the consequence then, of course, is, do we as politicians rein it in? Do we have to then throttle back our opinions, our policies, our rhetoric? Because we're worried that not only might we upset some yogurt knitters on the left, but that it might become more sinister. Because, for instance, we don't think that undocumented men from Syria, Afghanistan and wherever else should be allowed to rock up on our shores on our boat, and mingle in society, even though they might have criminal convictions and terrorist tendencies. Do we have to rein that in because that might offend people? Because some lunatic from Afghanistan that comes over on a boat might take issue with that and decide to do something, ill thought, something sinister. And where is Keir Starmer on this? Still the Prime Minister for a couple of days. Where's Andy Burnham on this? Why are they not talking about the outrage, the protection there should be? The fact that, in the summer of 2024, we had riots on the streets, actually because of what Keir Starmer said with regard to him labelling any British patriotic protester as far right.
Yeah.
Why don't we have the government, our Prime Minister and Prime Minister in waiting, now saying that anybody with tendencies towards politicians that are aggressive, violent, or whatever, that he and the authorities will come down on those anarchic, troublemaking death threaters, the same as he did when it came to people that were kind of picking up bins, threatening the police on the streets of London and Leeds and so on in 2024. Where is that? Why do we have this situation now where, when it's something that might be seen to be, anti-immigrant or far right, immediately the authorities come down on that, both in terms of censorship and police behaviour, police action. But when it's ordinary, members of the political class that are on the other side of the political spectrum, literally you can hear the tumbleweed from Whitehall. Nothing. No one is saying anything. It's great that Shabana Mahmood has decided to meet with Nigel Farage with regard to political protection. But I'm afraid when it comes to this government, Mike, I just feel that that's probably just a bit of window dressing. Shabana Mahmood thinking, I can't not meet with Nigel Farage because, one of his friends and political colleagues has just been murdered. So, I've got to do the right thing. Would it make any difference? Of course it won't. Of course
their hearts are not in it. Will, this is your area, isn't it? Protecting high-profile individuals.
Russell's absolutely right. The largest demographic of MPs that receive threats and feel threatened by it, Russell, as you say, are female MPs and female representatives. But this year alone, there's been 976 approximate criminal acts of threat that have been made against MPs. And the number of MPs who are now resigning, and to take your point about throttling down, Russell, on particular comments is absolutely on the money, because the number of MPs that are now deciding to withdraw from being an MP because of the number of threats they're receiving is getting higher and higher. And I agree. I think there needs to be some sort of active measure that's put into place to put punitive measures against individuals that threaten and make death threats against MPs. And the statistic roughly is about 37% of MPs will receive very specific death threats or threats to harm from individuals.
And what's the sort of the police position on that? I mean, if
Oh,
I
God.
sent a
Okay.
death threat to Russell, for example,
Yeah.
not that I
Another
would,
one.
obviously, another one,
Another one.
If I physically sent on my social media account,
Yeah.
I said something really quite violent and horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, will the police come and arrest me?
Probably they will. They'll come and arrest you, but you know, would they arrest a lot of other people out there? I mean, again, they'll probably arrest you because you're a high-profile individual.
No, I mean, I've had death threats.
Yeah, so have I.
But
and I'm sure Russell
I
has.
tend not to pay too much attention to them because they've been on social media by some nutter. I mean, I might report them to Twitter, but I don't bother calling the police because you just assume that, you know, unless it's somebody who is relentlessly sort of seemingly targeting you, I've never had the feeling that I'd needed to worry about it. But you know, there's clearly a big problem here. Right?
There's a bigger problem actually for Russell and for other MPs. Now, in this country, there are at least 4 agencies you have to go through to get an enhanced level of security given to you, Russell.
Right.
Even if you put forward the fact that you've received a very specific death threat. And if it was to get close protection, again, that would go to RAVEC and the Royalty and Specialist Protection teams. But again, you will have had to go through so many hoops because there are so many threats being made against MPs that it's the filtering process to go, well, you know, Russell may very well be targeted and yes, this might actually materialise. And in dealing with death threats for my own clients, I know the fact that you have to take lots of precautionary measures, and some of the measures and the advice that's being given to MPs, from what I've seen, has been pretty weak, to put it mildly. And I could wrap it up in a heck of a lot shorter order. And the basics that you would have been offered, Russell, would have been things like CCTV, alarms for your house, reinforced frames for your doors and your windows, which you probably are doing anyway.
Yeah. Well, Richard,
and can I just say, dogs. 2 massive dogs help. So
very doorbells.
Yeah, good luck with that. And this thing today at Essex County Council, this protest, I'll be fascinated to see. Maybe I'll come back on tomorrow and talk to you about this, Mike. What the police's response is. So, Police Essex headquarters. About 200 metres up the road. The Chelmsford City Police Station is about 100 metres up the road. It'll be interesting, maybe, I hope not, for all the wrong reasons, to see what the police response is. So we've had a politician that is a reform spokesperson for justice and immigration murdered 4 or 5 days ago. We then have an Essex County Council meeting, the home of Essex democracy, with hundreds of protesters turning up to have a go at us because of a policy that we've got where, I mean, and I'll tell you what it's about. We don't think that 5-year-old children should be indoctrinated in libraries into trans ideology. I mean, and I know that's an outrageous position to take.
Shocking.
But that is our position. And the cabinet member responsible for such things has made it very, very clear what our position is, Chris Hossack, who will be speaking today. So, but we've got hundreds potentially of protesters turning up. It only needs one, Will, doesn't it? One with kind of malice aforethought to decide to run across and do something unthinkable. There should be, I don't know, how many would you say, Will? A dozen police officers there, and not to be intimidating, and not to stop free speech. By the way, we should be very clear here that if someone has an issue with me, many people do, they should be allowed to voice that, whether it be publicly, whether it be at an event, or whether it be on social media. But as with all these things with free speech, there's a line, right? We don't need any more free speech rules. We definitely don't need censorship, because there's already a line, which is if it's defamation, you are culpable. If it is a threat to kill, then it becomes a matter of criminality. But the problem here, of course, is the policing. I bet that there's 2 police officers that turn up and stand outside County Hall for 10 minutes and then sod off. That's what's going to happen today. And if anything, God forbid, happens, given that there are 78 councillors in that chamber and about 50 officers plus members of the public, then it will be on Essex Police, won't it?
Yeah. And I think the other thing that's interesting and that we should point out is not just the death threat that comes from the kind of the nutty brigade out there, but also the relentless kind of dirge that comes from some politicians. I mean, Natalie Fleet, I mentioned earlier, she put out a tweet a couple of days ago that said, Nigel Farage and his gang of bin men get the same security as the rest of us. I'm sick of the faux outrage. None of them cared when a senior Reform UK politician was sharing my death threats. She yesterday puts out an apology saying, apologies for offence caused by my earlier tweet. She doesn't even bother putting it into a kind of a nice sentence. which I've now deleted. My thoughts are, as they have always been, with Anne Widdecombe's loved ones at this awful time. Well, they weren't actually, were they? And she's talking absolute tosh.
Well, they weren't always there, were they?
No. and the rhetoric that comes from Labour on this and from the Lib Dems, people like Ed Davey, who talks about, the biggest danger to Britain is not Russia, it's reform. That incites people, doesn't it?
Well, it does. And of course, the target of the authorities' issue with such things is always the so-called far right. They've completely ignored the nastiest, most spiteful part of the political spectrum, which is the far left, right? We all know how nasty, how disgusting the far left are. Look at the Socialist Worker. Was it 2 days ago? They're glad Anne Widdecombe's dead. And there was some narrative around that, hope she, I can't even believe I've got to say this, but this needs to be called out, that they hope she was handcuffed to a bed and suffered.
Yeah. Well, the background to that was that she was alleged to have said, when she was prisons minister, that she would be quite happy if pregnant women were handcuffed to a bed while they were giving birth. Turns out, one, she never said it. Two, she actually successfully sued a newspaper for reporting that she said it. And so now it's gone into the kind of realm of, this is what Anne Widdecombe said once. And so these bozos think it's okay to say. It's not okay.
Yeah. But where is the outrage towards the left?
Yeah.
Where is the policing of the far left? Now, again, saying something outrageous and people being offended, I'm fine with that. That's free speech. You don't have the right not to be offended. This here, by the way, I'm wearing this badge today because part of our council meeting is about free speach. I'll let you into a little secret. I've got now 2 complaints against me in the last 5 weeks at Essex County Council.
Well done.
I'm the absolute badge of honour. There it is. That is the Free Speech Union badge, and I'm wearing that with pride today. Thank you, Toby Young. I'm a member. And they've just got me out of a situation where Brentwood Council Liberal Democrats, because they don't like something I said about them, which was completely inoffensive but very inconvenient for them, they sought to have me banned from the council chamber. An elected politician, I've been elected 3 times in 7 months. Barry Aspinall, who is the leader of the Liberal Democrat Labour Alliance in Brentwood, his response to that is ban him, get rid of him, even though I've been elected, get rid of him. So, honestly, this stuff, this lefty rhetoric is sometimes not just inappropriate and immoral, but it borders on the criminal and the vile, particularly the socialist worker thing. But no one seems to do anything about the left. It's only othered by the migrant that's now been convicted of being a rapist, having inhabited the Bell Hotel. They're the bad guys, apparently. But the left, the socialist worker, Antifa. That by the way, we had a group meeting last night. One of our members said, I know Antifa are active in Essex. Do we need to worry about turning up to council tomorrow? For God's sake. What has this country become where the likes of Antifa can believe that they can operate kind of unfettered by the authorities? And don't forget, at Essex Police here, God, I'm talking too much about Essex, sorry, but only because it's topical in that we've got this council meeting today. But the Antifa mob were the ones that were escorted by Essex Police from Epping Station to the Bell Hotel so that they could, in the words of Roger Hurst and Ben Julian Harrington, who was the then Chief Constable of Essex, so that they would be allowed to protest freely. Hang on, they've got masks on and they're throwing rocks at people. Seriously, why is the left let off the hook? And anybody that is slightly patriotic is deemed to be a far right nutter.
Right. And who's financing them? How about the Times looks into a bit of that? No, don't think they need to do that. But the other thing as well about the police and their warnings about, speculation and how people shouldn't be making statements on social media. How about they actually say to people, you should also be warned that if you are making, disgraceful death threats against anyone or making unpleasant, nasty comments on social media, you should stop doing that as well. They didn't mention it.
No, they didn't. But I think if someone makes what is deemed to be a genuine death threat, they should be treated as the government treated the patriotic so-called rioters in 2024. They should be arrested, investigated, charged, so proper due process, and then fast-tracked. Like Lucy Connolly was for retweeting something that was undesirable. that would give us a bit of confidence in the system, wouldn't it? That some lunatic who's got a bookshelf, a bit like this alleged Anne Widdecombe murderer, a bookshelf full of stuff about anarchy and Marxism and extreme leftism. Set some examples that apply to both sides of the political spectrum in balance, right?
Yeah.
But they won't, because it's seen that the left are good, the left are a kind of force of righteousness and balance and equality. And anyone now with this Overton window shift that we've seen over the last decade or two, anybody that says like me, oh, I quite like Margaret Thatcher, Nazi. Anybody that says I don't really like illegal immigration, fascist. I mean, seriously, what have we become?
I know, it's absolutely extraordinary. Russell, do come on tomorrow and let us know how it all went, because I'd be interested to know, not least in terms of who demonstrates against it. Because I think the trouble is with all of these kinds of, campaigns in the press and people like James O'Brien mouthing his crap, people feel empowered and they think, oh, reform are on the run. Now we can chase them out of, Parliament. Now we can chase them out of the public space,
I can tell you, whether it's what's happening in Clacton with Nigel and this attempt to rally Conservative, Labour, Lib Dem and Green voters behind a bloody bin, that's what they're doing. In other words, vote for a bin rather than us, say the Conservatives, Labour and the Lib Dems. How funny is that? That says it all, doesn't it? Whether it's that or our earnest mission, particularly in memory of Anne Widdecombe, or the fact that we are being downtrodden, we are being distracted, criticised, and this attempt to cancel us, I can tell you that the vast, vast majority of people within Reform, including me, it just makes us even more determined. Good.
Well, we wish you all the best and good luck with it. So, let's talk to you tomorrow. Russell Quirk, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. It's extraordinary, isn't it, though, how we seem to have fallen into this kind of left-wing establishment, and people have been talking about the establishment for quite a while. Layla Cunningham was on, I think, Newsnight the other night saying, people don't understand really what the establishment is. They think anyone who's got money is in the establishment. No, it's not like that. It's about what your kind of power base is. If you're in the civil service, you're part of the establishment. If you're making decisions about people's livelihoods or about people's lives, if you're in, government, you're in the establishment. If you're in the police, you're in the establishment.
Exactly.
You don't suddenly enter the establishment because you did well in the city
and you've got a pocket full of cash. No, absolutely.
Or you drive a nice car.
The establishment is such an innocuous term anyway. It can mean virtually anything depending on one's interpretation. But I think the thing that astounds me, and I'm picking up on what Russell was saying there, and Russell's always good value, is the fact that Andy Burnham, who is supposedly coming in as the new leader-elect, has... I
still can't quite believe those words when I hear them.
No, nor can I. But he's standing in there. But then again, there's nothing to stop Shabana Mahmood doing this. You've got this cesspit of Labour MPs coming out with these hideous messages in the wake of Anne Widdecombe's horrible murder. And there's no cohesion there. That's the problem with the Labour Party. There are all these little satellites
and
of
we
hate.
mentioned about Starmer and Burnham before. Why is he not saying, Starmer, publicly to all of his MPs, you don't say that.
No,
you don't
shut
speak
up.
ill of the dead.
Exactly.
You don't insult Anne Widdecombe. She was a very fine woman. I mean, he made a nice comment about her when she was killed and said, so that, you give him marks for that. But he hasn't told the rest of his scumbag party that they shouldn't say that either.
And yet, if you put it the other way, if, say, Keir Starmer died, God help us, I got stuck on that, I was enjoying it. The problem that you would then, what you wouldn't have is you wouldn't have Nigel Farage, Richard Tice, and everybody else saying, well, good luck, good riddance, that sort of thing. They'd come out with highly respectful terms of condolences.
Exactly.
That's the difference. That's the difference that we're dealing with here.
I know, absolutely right. Let's have a look and see what old Starmer's been saying lately, or he's put out
anything of any value.
He's put a tweet out about the Hillsborough scenario because that's always safe ground for him. He's off to Paris today.
Oh, is he?
There's a nice picture of him with Emmanuel Macron. Nice
is he going to take it up the Eiffel?
I don't know. Very possibly. I'm in Paris for my final meeting of the Coalition of the Willy. Sorry, willing. I'm proud to have worked with Emmanuel Macron to bring 25 nations together, united in support of Ukraine and European security. Today, we stand stronger than ever. Our message remains clear. Ukraine's security is our security.
Oh, for God's sake.
How about our security?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, I'm going to show you a video in a second, which you might want to see here just before we talk to Godfrey Bloom.
Yeah.
This is filmed in Manchester, in a place called Hulme. Is it Hulme?
Hulme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds Danish. It's Hulme. Anyway, this is in Manchester, right? We've taken the sound off it because there's somebody who's filmed it who's swearing quite a lot. But this is some young men who I might hasten to suggest to you are not from these shores.
Really?
Yeah.
What says that?
Having a bit
Let's
of
have
a
a
punch
look.
up. Can we have a look? Here we go. So there's a car. Guy gets out of it. They've all got machetes, by the way.
Nice.
Right. I noticed that somebody, they're just fighting in the street. Right. I don't know what's going on. We don't know why they're fighting in the street. We don't know where they're from. We can't see exactly where they're from, whether it's Eritrea or Somalia. But look at it. I mean, this is on the streets of Britain going on right now, every single day. It's broad
Nice.
daylight. I mean, you could be walking there with your dog. You could be walking past with the child. This is what we call lawless Britain and broken Britain, right? And it's a really shocking thing to see. And the most shocking thing about it is that people will be watching that going, actually, it's not that shocking. And that's
They're going to increasingly start thinking
now
that's
they all
not
get
shocking.
back in the car
That's for sure.
and they drive off. I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Welcome to Britain.
Okay, go back 10 years,
Yeah.
Mike. Would we have seen this? Very rarely.
No.
And one might say, okay, social media is much more prolific now, so you're more likely to see stuff
but you
which you
could
wouldn't
probably
capture
find
before.
that
But
going on in any town, up and down the country,
Yeah.
any day of the week.
Absolutely.
Right? That is not an unusual occurrence, I guess.
not now. Not now.
No.
Yeah.
Shocking. Before we talk to Godfrey, shall we have a bit of news?
Yeah, let's do it.
With Edward Hughes.
Hello, everyone. Edward the News Hughes here with your Tuesday Bulletin. Andy Burnham is on track to become the UK's next Prime Minister. The former Greater Manchester Mayor has secured overwhelming support from Labour MPs, positioning him to replace Keir Starmer without a full contest or general election. He's expected to enter Downing Street around July 20th. In a major development, counter-terrorism police have taken over the murder investigation into former Minister Anne Widdecombe. She was found dead at her Devon home with serious injuries last week. A man was arrested and later rearrested on terrorism-related suspicions after new evidence emerged. The probe is now treated as potentially politically motivated. Other headlines include UK moves to sanction Russian cyber networks and designate Iran's IRGC, alongside concerns over heatwave impacts. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Welcome back to the Mike Graham Show, 9 minutes past 8. Will Getty's still here with us. We're going to be talking to Godfrey Bloom in a moment. Coming up a little bit later on, Colin Sutton will join us again because he will tell us what he made of the police's kind of reverse ferret, as we used to call it in Fleet Street yesterday, when they came out having said that there was absolutely no evidence whatsoever that it was a political murder, and that there was no evidence whatsoever of terrorist activity, and apparently now there is. Why don't we have a look, actually, before we speak to Godfrey, Anne Widdecombe, because we played a great tribute to her yesterday, which Charlotte put together, which we'll play again at some point this week. But I just want to play a couple of other clips, and we've got one today on Anne Widdecombe talking about radicalisation. Have a look at this.
But nevertheless, what I would say is this, that to families, if they think that sons, brothers, whatever it might be, are becoming radicalised, or daughters for that matter, sisters, if people are becoming radicalised, report it, because you'll not only be saving the potential victims, you'll actually be doing your relative a favour, because this man now, he's going to spend 50, maybe 60 years in prison, confined to a narrow cell, a restricted exercise yard. He's never going to walk in the free country. He's never going to see any beauty of sunsets. And he's never even going to be able to do something ordinary like go shopping and buy a cup of coffee. That is all denied to him. So I would say to families, if you've got any suspicions, think of your relative as well. If you can't think beyond that to the victims, think of the relative. This is what's waiting for him. And that's why I'm glad he wasn't shot. He didn't get his martyrdom. This is what is waiting for them.
It's still quite shocking to see Anne speaking, isn't it? Because she spoke so much sense, and we've got so many clips of her that we're going to be playing over the course of this week, I'm sure. But let's say very good morning to Godfrey Bloom, who is here. Godfrey, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning to you.
Still shocking, really, to see footage of Anne. We forget just how brilliant she was, I think, perhaps sometimes, in terms of her just common sense approach to the world and to life in general. You would have known her. I know you did a nice tribute to her on your own social media page. What were your sort of memories and remembrances of her?
Well, I was always impressed. She was a great Christian patriot, and she did speak a great deal of common sense. I said in my tribute to her that we didn't always agree on everything, but that's neither here nor there. The fact is that she was very much in the top echelon of the tradition of old school politicians, which have almost now disappeared, I would argue. And I would say, picking up on a point that you made a bit earlier, about Starmer's discipline of his backbenchers on this particular subject. The chief whip should be having an interview without coffee.
Yes.
Without coffee. And they should be said, any more of this and they'll be suspended, because it's dragging the Labour Party even further into the poo. And this kind of behaviour, this kind of speaking from people who clearly have no moral compass, and I would suspect not the benefit of a traditional education.
Yes, I think that's right. Because we do have now, I would say, a very kind of rude society, don't we? I mean, I've noticed it just walking around the streets of London, where people are not as generous to each other, just in terms of getting out of each other's way, or, you know, pushing ahead of people, pushing in front of people. You know, people don't seem to have any manners anymore. And I know that people will say to me, well, what's wrong with you, you silly old fool? You know, there's more to life than manners. Well, I don't think there is, actually. And even driving, you know, you get an awful lot of people, and I have to say many of them don't look as if they're from here. They don't seem to understand the rules of the road. The number of people now who drive straight out in front of you when you're coming from their right, and they don't seem to know that you're supposed to give way on roundabouts, all of that kind of thing. You know, it all feeds in, for me, to the same, lack of standards that we seem to have suffered from now.
Well, I entirely agree. And of course, the motto for Widgett's, or the Wycomist, is manners maketh man. And they do. That's what distinguishes them, the beast in the field. And you're quite right. We seem to have lost that, especially in the big cities. But let me make a little observation on this. I've been on a coastal path walking in Wales. We go every year to walk the coastal paths in Wales. If you go to Mid Wales or West Wales or North Wales, even, I can't speak for South Wales because I don't know it, you will find old world courtesy is still there, very much so. And if you go to Market Town and you go for a pint, or you go for a cup of coffee, or you go into a shop, you'll find there's that old world. It's like stepping back into the 1950s when it comes to respect for older people, respect for parents, respect for each other. It's really first rate. So I do commend everybody. And here's another thing that might amuse you. We just got back from our 11th year there walking those coastal paths. I have never been in rain in Wales. It has really burnt us. The sun's been shining for 12 years in a row. So don't imagine that the weather isn't very good. The weather is good, the scenery is fantastic, and the people are polite. I have no Welsh blood, incidentally, but that's just a fact.
Yes, I saw as well from your post that you saw the bish while you were there as well, which is always a good idea.
I gave him lunch. We took a cottage, we gave him lunch. It was wonderful to actually see him not on a face to face in real life, as opposed to Zoom and all the rest of it. A very impressive man indeed. Again, we don't agree on everything by any means. But I know a man of conviction when I see one and when I speak to one, and more power to his elbow. And in fact, I know you've made him your padre on your show. I've made him we've always had a traditional padre at our cricket and croquet club, to which I'm president. The reason I'm president is because I voted myself in. And he's very kindly taken up that role as well, taken over from a Christian padre, a Church of England padre who got fed up with the Church of England and moved to the Greek Orthodox Church, who was also my regimental padre when I was in the army. So yes, I'm very pleased to get him on board. And he can do little jobs for us, like baptise, the next generation at the clubhouse.
Absolutely right. Yeah, funnily enough, you mentioned the sort of the traditions of the country and the padres and the Church of England. And I noticed yesterday when I was talking to Marilyn Hawes, we were asking whether there had been any mention of Anne Widdecombe's death from the point of view of the King. And I had a look on the royal family's Twitter feed. You might be amused by this, Will.
Yeah.
And there isn't any mention of the death of Anne Widdecombe, but there is a message of condolence from the King and Queen following the passing of His Highness Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, Father Emir of the State of Qatar. And you kind of go, sorry? What the hell's going on here?
Well, I would argue, as I have argued for some time, I wrote articles about this several years ago in various magazines, whether the monarchy would survive this man. He's appalling, and I'm a speaker as a monarchist. I had the Queen's Commission. My father had a Queen's Commission. My grandfather had the King's Commission. In the two great wars, and we are dyed-in-the-wool monarchists, but not the Windsors. Not this man. He's a wrong 'un. He's a wrong 'un. Edward VIII was a wrong 'un. There's bad blood in the Windsors, and I'd sweep them out, bring back the Plantagenet sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad shout. And what about the state of the police as well? We can't let you go without your view on how, once again, we find ourselves besmirched by the Devon and Cornwall police, who were telling everybody that they shouldn't be speculating and busy telling us that we shouldn't be thinking at all that there was some kind of political motive to the murder of Anne Widdecombe. And it now turns out that they think there is.
Well, in the 70s, we had financial corruption very badly, the Met Police, for example. Now we have intellectual corruption. And this is one of the things that we're having to face at the moment. I saw a clip the other day. There are many clips in social media of a policeman with earrings. They now all seem to have beards, but they're not beards as we know it, like the Tsar of all the Russias or James Robinson Justice. They just haven't shaved for a few weeks. They look like a sack of shit. They behave like a sack of shit. And what you see is always what you get. Well, the old days, they were paraded. The sergeant would parade them at the police station, make sure they properly turned up. Now, if they don't have any respect for themselves, right, this is a situation where they don't have any respect for themselves. How can anybody else have any respect for them? I'd sweep them out, lock, stock, and barrel, and start again, because they're no good to man and beast. And if I may make one quick observation, I have never seen a clip where the police were turning up anything other than team-handed. There's always 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5. They came to see me on a matter about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and there were 5 of them. I'm nearer 80 than 70. I mean, what did they think I was going to do?
I know.
Now, there are 30, I just checked it this morning, there are 35,000 policemen in the Met Police. I'm just using the Met Police because I happen to have a close examination of them. 35,000 Met Police. If they go everywhere in threes, it means you've only got somewhere in the region of 10,000 police operational, because they're all crowding around the same tea room or whatever they're doing. This can't go on. There is no operational discipline. There's no guidance. There's no officer class. There's nobody sorting it out. And they're a dog's breakfast. And of course, we're picking up their wrongful arrest and their lack of training and their stupidity. The taxpayers having to bail them out with 25 grand here and 25 grand there because they make such a bollocks of the whole thing.
Well, they had to give Graham Linehan 25 grand just the other day, and that was my first thought. I was like, well, that's my bleeding money you're giving away, you complete and utter numpties. Do your jobs and stop being useless.
Exactly, and fines should be deducted from their salaries, and there should be a retraining camp, somewhere in Britain, run by me, and they will be beasted from here to eternity.
Yeah,
God,
brilliant.
God.
You can sign up Will Geddes for that one as well. Godfrey, it's great to see you. Thank you very much. Brilliant as ever. Godfrey Bloom there, full of vim and vigour and fun and ideas.
How can you not love
How can you not love that, right?
How can you not love
He's
Goddess?
Absolutely right. I tell you, I don't know if I've
and
seen
they are
you.
a sack of shit.
This was a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know if I told you this story.
Yeah.
I told it on air. Of my friend and I were having a drink in Marylebone, just off Wigmore Street, and there'd been some kind of an attempted robbery or a successful robbery, I don't know, of a jewellery store. Because I arrived, people sitting outside. It was a nice day. And we watched the police as they were going about their business, right?
I remember this.
And when I got there was a woman an elderly woman being interviewed by a female police officer sitting down outside the restaurant. There was a guy who appeared to be sort of coordinating it all. There was about a dozen of them.
Yeah.
Most of them not doing anything at all. One of them had a laptop, but the rest was just sort of standing around, watching and looking and not apparently doing anything. The forensic people arrived, and there was about 3 of them. They went in.
Yet if you or I got burgled, Mike, they wouldn't do anything. They'd go, right, report it on 101 so you can get your insurance claim in, and that's it.
Well, funnily enough, in the tribute to Anne Widdecombe that we played yesterday, one of the clips was of her talking to me on the show many weeks ago, or maybe even, maybe many months ago, talking about how some couple of decades ago, she said, somebody had stolen something from a garden shed. They'd taken a strimmer or something. And she said the police came, but they didn't bother, even though they said, we think there might be somebody acting in the area, taking stuff from various different houses. Didn't bother taking any fingerprints, but offered her counselling instead. And she just said, I just burst out laughing in her face. What do you mean counselling? I've just taken my strimmer. I'm fine. I'm not in need of any counselling. And they seem to have, as Godfrey just said, they've just lost the plot, haven't they?
I mean, I think we can put a lot back to Theresa May as well, in terms of her cutting such significant numbers of police officers during her reign.
Yes.
And a good part of that was community policing. And the one thing that I certainly remember was many of the police, if you did get burgled, they'd know who the local villains were who would generally do it, so they could go and collar them. Go and arrive at their house, find your stuff in there.
Which is why this was such
within a couple of miles.
This is why this was such an improbable burglary that this character drove 270 miles, whatever it was, to burgle somebody's house. And of course, they didn't even say at the time that nothing was stolen.
No.
Which they should have said.
No.
So that we could rule that out.
But let's not also miss the point that they mentioned it was a white male.
Yeah.
How quickly they came out with that.
Very quickly.
Very quickly.
And in fact, then they went and arrested the wrong white male, because they arrested the guy who had sort of pulled up onto the drive, who we think was just a delivery guy.
Yeah.
From locally in Newton Abbot.
The one thing I found really surprising about the whole thing, and I have to say I was challenged by it, I'm sure everybody else was the timelines on everything, and the timelines of who did what at what point, when Anne was last in communication. I mean, there's some questions over this last scene on WhatsApp that I can certainly say. I mean, Charlotte and I were messaging with each other last night
we
about
believe
this.
that to be a fake
I don't believe
post.
It's absolutely right. I mean, there are so many ways that you can change it. I mean, I have on my WhatsApp, I don't allow anybody to see when my last scene was, or even read on receipt, just in case it's a message I don't particularly want to answer.
Yeah.
So, in terms of some of the timelines the police have provided, and then inject, obviously, speculation by the general public, understandably, like Russell was saying earlier. People will fill the void where the police aren't. And then ultimately the police turning around and saying, well, we've got counter-terrorism involved. No, we're not going to get them involved. Oh, yes, they are involved. This whole yo-yo approach, and then this lack of chain of evidence, as we would call it, in terms of timelines, what happened, when it was anticipated to happen. Again, there were too many things which were injected into the scenario and the story and the narrative that it was confusing the general public, and understandably they were turning around and saying, well, we can't trust the police because they can't seem to get their story straight.
Well, I mean, maybe we should check in. We're about to speak to Colin Sutton, who we spoke to yesterday, former detective, of course, now running to be Crime Commissioner in Norfolk. Can we have a quick look at the poll update? I'm pretty sure it hasn't changed much, but we've asked people, who do you trust the most out of a selection of what can only be described as ne'er-do-wells? 1, Keir Starmer; 2, Andy Burnham; 3, the police; and 4, Billy Liar. Can we have that? There we go. Let's have a look. 95% Billy Liar. There you go. That's how badly the trust is in the police. A lot of people voting today. 6,000 votes already.
That's pretty good going.
Pretty decent going. And amazing numbers of people watching, actually. So thank you for tuning in. 25 minutes
Increasing every day, Mike. Increasing every day.
Yeah, absolutely right. Because this is where you get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Your website and Donald's merch store.
Oh, Blimey. We got a new UK live website. Look at this. This is great.
Excellent.
The revolution will be televised. Please subscribe.
Down. There you go. You're live there.
Oh, I'm live on there as well. This is amazing.
What's the domain so we can go on there?
UK Live Online.
UK Live Online.
ukliveonline.co.uk.
We have Donald's merch store.
Donald's merch store. There we are. One size fits all.
Yeah.
The same.
Can I buy one of these excellent mugs on there?
Yes, I'm sure you can.
I'm going to steal this one, but can I buy one for someone else?
That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Got your bumper stickers. And
Bumper
everything.
stickers. Wow.
Brilliant.
This is great. So get yourself over to UK Live. Of course, Kelvin McKenzie coming on at 10 o'clock. He'll be here for that. And then followed by Mark Littlewood with the World Cupper show. He's asked me to go on there. I'm very honoured. He's asked me to go on Friday. Yeah,
That'd be great. It's a great show.
I said I might have to do it for the tube though, because I'm going to be on my way to some lunch or other. Anyway, let's say a very good morning to Colin Sutton, who's very kindly agreed to come on again, having been here yesterday. Colin, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Something's gone wrong with the lighting this morning, Mike. I don't know what's happened.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, we call that mood lighting, don't we? So you look absolutely fine. It turns out that the conversations we were having yesterday have taken a bit of a turn since then, and the police have now suddenly decided. Well, I was going to ask you what the procedure might have been here, because it sounds to me as though it was the Home Secretary who ordered the terror police to sort of take over the investigation. Would that be your understanding?
I think there's a good case for saying that from what we know and what she said. They can't actually order, but they can suggest very, very strongly, and generally you do what the Home Secretary says.
Yeah.
I think the notable thing is there is a counter-terrorist department, if you like, for the Southwest as well.
Yes.
Where they took place. But it was counter-terrorism Northeast that made the arrest, and it's now, I understand, in the hands of the counter-terrorism Southeast, which of course includes London, which seems a bit odd because they've got nothing to do with it. So, yeah, whether that's because it was something that came straight from the top, and they said, these are the people with the most experience and the most immersion and so forth, so let them do it, which could be the case. I mean, I think there are a number of things that obviously that we could talk about all day about this, and I still don't like to sort of do anything that's going to influence the poor old senior investigating officer, because investigating murders is hard, and people don't realise that because they see it played out over an hour on the television, and it's not quite like that in real life, and things come at you very fast and things change. But I think what we saw and what we have seen is that in an effort to try to get behind the sort of things we were talking about yesterday, and that's the social media thing and getting the information out there to try and stop speculation,
right,
that can cause a problem if you get it wrong. And that's what's happened, and so you end up then in a worse position, and I think really there's a lot to be said for standing up there and saying it's too early, we don't know, we're keeping an open mind.
Well, they said that. I mean, that's what we said yesterday. I mean, they said we're keeping an open mind, but at the same time, they also said we don't believe there's any reason to think of a political motive, which they didn't need to say, because clearly they didn't know the answer to that.
But that's right, and that's the pressure that is now applied in the current days by social media and by people speculating online and so forth. So, it makes it difficult. But I think I was thinking last night, when one of these awful school shootings or similar big incident happens in the States, have you ever seen any of the American police officers come and do their press conference?
Yeah,
they all to a man and woman seem to be just completely upfront and completely open. And they tell it as it is, and if they don't know how it is, they say they don't know.
Yes,
and I think
but that was obviously I went to work in America in the 80s for nearly 10 years, and I was amazed at the openness of the law enforcement. I used to be able to ring up an FBI office in Chicago and go, listen, I understand you're interviewing or you're investigating this particular firm. I used to do a lot of financial kind of insider trading type stories, and they'd be like, oh yeah, and then they would give you any information you wanted, and then if they didn't want you, there's some music going. What's that?
That was me.
Oh, was that you?
Apologise.
And if they could give you some documentation, they would fax it over, and if they didn't want you to quote them, they would say, please don't quote me. please take this as background information, and it was a much more open system, it seemed to me. And similarly there, they don't have this idea that you can prejudice a trial. So there's no worries about what gets written or what gets said or what gets talked about in the press. It's a far better, I think, system.
And that's the point, yeah. But I think the other thing is, and it may be surprising considering that we think of the United States as the home and birthplace of DEI, don't we, and things like that. And kind of public institutions and so forth out there don't seem to be in many ways as touched by it as we are. And I think that's the issue as well, is that those American police officers who can go on television and tell it as it is aren't fearful that telling it as it is going to lead to some horrible demerit on their record and they're not going to get promoted. And of course, a lot of their police chiefs are elected anyway. But it's another kind of function of this kind of fear that we've induced, particularly in our police leadership, over being called out for saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing.
And it seems as though this development where we're talking about some kind of material found at the suspect's home, communist literature, we're not quite sure exactly what it is, but it would seem as though they made that assertion that there was no political motive before they'd searched his house, which seems even more ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. And until you have done that, until you've actually got somebody in custody and you've spoken to them and you've done all the full intelligence research and so forth, it's really difficult to say what a motive is. And we don't. I often say this, and people are quite surprised by it. But motive, in a lot of cases, doesn't actually matter. All you're trying to do is prove who did it and when they did it and how they did it, but not why they did it. And so, in some ways, being asked about motive that early on, it's not something that we're used to trying to find out early on. It's if you've got no idea and you get stuck in an investigation, then sometimes you will go to, well, who is it who had the motive to do that? Shall we look at them? But that's kind of down the line. When you put something there and then straight away, you've got so many other things going on in terms of interviewing, in terms of seizing evidence, in terms of doing the forensic and the scientific examinations and all the rest of it to get your hard, proper evidence, that motive is somewhere way down the line. And sometimes you don't even ever get there. And you can go through.
Well, you've literally just given a chapter and verse lesson to, what's his name, Deputy Chief Constable, whoever he is, Matt Longman. He could have said all of that, and if he'd said all of that on Sunday, nobody would have been any more critical of him. They would have just said, "Oh, fair enough. You've just explained the police procedure here. You just explained what you don't know and why you don't know it and why it's not important." I mean, I remember there was a comedian I once saw in New York who said, they were talking about some terrible murder, and he said, and all these journalists are going, "What's the motive? What's the motive? He's a nutter. That's what the motive is." And I mean, sometimes that's enough.
Yeah, that's right. But I agree. What you said there was right. But I think it just proves this point that the pressure that senior police officers and senior investigators are now under because of the social media and the social news and all the rest of it leads them to have to say things at a time they don't want to say it. And it's the trick of it for us will be giving them the kind of confidence and the status and the empowering them, if you like, to say, no, we don't know, just wait. Again, without any kind of brickbats being thrown at them for that. But also in kind of somehow stopping the expectation that there's going to be a running commentary and you're going to get an update every 10 minutes from the police as to how this is going. Yes, we understand there's a huge amount of public interest in these things when they're big, high-profile cases like this. But there is a point where you have to say, look, just let them get on for a bit and then they can tell us what we've got. But the key to it is communication. The key to much of this is communication. And the pendulum has sort of swung from saying nothing to saying too much too early. And we need to find that balance in the middle where with officers with the confidence to say, look, we don't know yet, but we'll come back and tell you as soon as we do know.
Sure.
And I think people will accept that eventually, and they seem to accept it in the States.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we understand now, and we've got Will Geddes here with me as well. I think it's right to say that they've now got themselves 14 days, because if terror charges are involved, they've got 14 days, I think, to question the suspect before a charge has to be made. So they don't have to come out and make another statement. They don't have to apply for a court order to hold him at the moment. So what would you expect them to be doing? And will the next statement come not from Devon and Cornwall Police, but it might come from South East Terror Police?
Yeah, I would imagine that now what we will see is Lawrence Taylor, who's the head of counter-terrorism policing in the country. I would imagine that he would take on that role. The actual officers who do the investigations and the SIOs and their teams in counter-terrorism tend to take a bit of a back step for obvious reasons. So I think we'll probably see Mr. Taylor coming out there and giving us an update when we get it. But it might actually be that the next update we get is, he has been charged.
Yes.
We don't know.
Right. Interesting. Well, listen, Colin, as ever, really appreciate it. Tomorrow, Thursday's the day, isn't it, where the voting takes place for...
Thursday, yeah, I'm back out again in a minute. I was just about to go, and then Charlotte texted me and said, "Are you coming on?" I said, "We haven't got I rushed in here. That's why I couldn't get the lighting right, but I do apologise."
Don't worry, no, it's not a problem. Very good to see you, and good luck with it. Colin Sutton there, who's running to be Crime Commissioner in Norfolk. Very sensible man. He was saying yesterday, Will, I don't know if you were able to hear the show, that in the old days, which is what I remember as a Fleet Street guy, the police relationship with the press was so much better because people were trusted, and you would have conversations with individual officers and individual detectives who would go, well, this is what's going on. Look, but you can't say that. But we can give you a sort of steer as to which way we're heading.
Yes.
And that kind of thing, which was a lot better, wasn't it?
Yeah, it fills the void. You're absolutely right about the US as well. I mean, I've got some good friends in various agencies out there, and I will call them up and ask them for intel and ask them for information on this, that, and the other, and they'll be very forthcoming, and they'll go, you're moving into a boundary here, Will, we can't share that with you. I highly respect Colin, and I to a degree, I understand this point about motive, but I actually believe motive to a certain extent is important, but what Colin said was very important, was about communication. And the reason why motive is important is as to whether there's a broader risk potentially at large.
If there may be more people involved or something.
Yeah, well, either if there are more people involved or a broader community needs to be, or a specific community needs to be on their guard. So, I mean, a good example of that is this is an MP that has been targeted. Should other MPs be considered? Because one of the biggest threats, or one of the biggest concerns of a lot of us will have, is there are consecutive attacks being taken place across various different target areas. So to turn around and say, okay, at the moment we can't tell you whether we need to be on your guard, you need to be on your guard, or for that matter, seems to be, we would concern or communicate out to basically other MPs and just say, look, just be cautious at the moment until we determine whether this has got a terrorism angle on it, whether it's got a party political specific motive, or whether this was a burglary. At the very early stages, we didn't know whether it was a burglary or not, but enough in terms of the communication. And the other thing that I always suggest is you've got to be so cautious about setting deadlines for updates as well, because if you keep setting those deadlines, you're trying to scramble for information to try and provide, rather than having just an open line of communication with the press and allowing the press, and not just the MSM, to be able to be informed as to what's going on.
Yeah, because you want to be able to trust the police. Listen, I don't want to sit here and denigrate the police just for the sake of it, because I'd rather have a police force that actually was good and reliable. But unfortunately, I don't feel like that's what we've got right now. It feels as though there's too many police officers doing the wrong thing. Chasing people down for tweets and, notwithstanding what we were saying earlier about things like death threats, because there is a law about that. If you make a death threat, that should be against the law.
Absolutely.
That shouldn't be a problem for the police to go and deal with. But, if you just give an opinion about something, they should not be running round to your house. And as one of our previous guests said, it was Godfrey, I think, suddenly 5 police officers turn up at your house. It's like, why? Remember that couple who had a row with the school? And it turned out, I think the guy was a Times radio producer.
Right.
And they got a visitation from 7 police officers.
I don't remember that, but
this was last year.
These things happen almost every day.
Well, exactly. It was. I think there was some dispute about their daughter and the school, and they'd sent an email to the headmistress or something like that, who had reported them for some kind of harassment, stroke, danger. And so 7 police turned up and arrested them.
Why are they coming mob-handed? I mean, I agree with Godfrey on this.
Took them into custody and held them for sort of 20 hours or something. Questioned them about why
they
they
were. I do kind of remember this. Yeah,
it was quite a big deal at the time. But 7 police officers, and you just think, why?
Why?
Right?
Exactly, when it could have easily been one, if not two. You know,
Yeah.
let's say two at the very sort of least. That's for sure.
It's just insane. Anyway, we're still going. You're very welcome to stay.
I'll hang around until I get booted off.
We'll get his still here. We've got David Vance to talk to now, I think, haven't we?
Yeah, a couple of super chats.
Oh, let's do a couple of super chats. We haven't done too many of those. Thank you for sending those in, by the way. My apologies. Alistair says this: surely it's preferable that the public speculate rather than the police. The police are supposed to be professional.
Agreed.
Well, you would say that, wouldn't you? And also, I mean, the public will always speculate. Jude says this: all MPs should have panic buttons installed in their homes with a direct connection to the local plod. Let's hope they are good for something. Well, certainly we've heard from Richard Tyson that he has got a panic alarm.
Yeah, a lot of them will.
Which he pressed, which immediately, as long as he's in a particular area which is protected, like when he was in the Westminster sort of Parliament area, armed police were able to come and get him out of the situation he was in, which was quite alarming, apparently. Dapo says this: morning, Mike. Road Reservoirs, there's one being made in Oxford for 5.6 billion, so you can double it. Pretty sure any other country could dig a hole for less. 5.6 billion. Yeah, incredible. Who was I talking to the other week about a Chinese? I know it was a friend of mine that I know who lives locally, who works in the railway business.
Right.
And he was saying that he had a visitation from a load of Chinese sort of railway executives who came over to look at what they were doing with Crossrail. And he made sure that he had somebody with him who was a Chinese
interpreter.
Interpreter. So when they all started talking to each other in Chinese, he could figure out what it was they were saying. And he said apparently he discovered that they were talking to each other constantly in Chinese as he was showing them around. And at that point, I think they'd been working on Crossrail for about 9 years or something, right?
Right.
And he said to the interpreter, what are they saying to each other? And she's like, they're all incredulous that you've taken this long and you still don't have a railway, because they've built about 55 million miles of railway at the same time that you've taken to try and put one little railway across London.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's one more there, Charlotte. Can I just do it?
Yeah.
This one from Leon. Every time government announces net zero initiative, I go on a drive in my 4x4 from Cornwall to Inverness and back for absolutely no reason. Well done. Mick says this: R.I.P. Anne Widdecombe. She was our mother, our daughter, our sister, our auntie, our niece, our granny. Quite simply, she was our Anne. God bless you, Widdy. Well, that seems like a good opportunity, does it not, for playing another Anne Widdecombe clip?
Yeah.
So let's have a go at her sticking it to the European Union.
It's a great honour to speak on behalf of the largest single party in this place. And may I say that if I needed any convincing at all, that the best thing for Britain is to leave here as soon as possible. It was the way that those elections were conducted yesterday. Because if that is this place's idea of democracy, then that is a serious betrayal of every country that is represented here. Because it is not democratic at all. And that is just one of many reasons why Britain is right to be leaving this place, hopefully on Halloween. And it is right because there is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires. And that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. I represent the southwest of the United Kingdom. And I found on my very first day that this place has decided, at least this place hasn't, the powers that be have decided to actually increase the size of fishermen's meshes, thereby reducing their income by 40%. That's what you do here. That's why we're going. News are long, wir gehen, we're off.
I love the fact that they're trying to shut her up as well, and she just doesn't shut up. By the way, if you didn't notice it yesterday, and I put this out on Twitter, we got a lovely photograph of Anne Widdecombe, which Pooch put up yesterday over there underneath Ziggy, which is a very appropriate place for her.
Yeah.
So God rest her soul, as we say. Let's talk to David Vance, who's here with us now. David, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
It's good to see you. It's been a terrible few days, hasn't it? We're sort of trying to get through it as best we can. Did you know Anne at all?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, I mean, I think anyone in the political space, Mike, over the past number of years would have come across Anne, and just that little clip you played. I mean, that epitomizes how great she was.
Yeah.
And it also sadly shows us what we've lost as well, I think, So I think actually, Mike, on this one, when this happened on Friday, probably like yourself and most people, I assumed that, when the news first broke, that it was a natural death, sad, but happened, And then we've gone through this like clown show where it's a natural death. Then, it's potentially a murder. And then we've got a guy. We've a white guy. Then we've let him go.
Yeah.
Then we've got another guy. And this time, he travelled from Rotherham at world record speeds to allegedly carry out the murder. And I don't know about you, but I just have zero confidence in Devon and Cornwall Police. And the very fact that we've now got to the stage where counter-terrorism police are involved speaks also to that point, insofar as British people want to have confidence in the forces of law and order. But like Devon and Cornwall have, performed like the Keystone Cops, I think, anyway.
Well, they have, and it's interesting that it came out, I think, just over the weekend that their record on solving violent crime in Devon and Cornwall is actually pretty bad. And now you can see why, because they're obviously, like many police forces that we've seen in recent times, much more concerned about, what the public perception is of what they're doing, rather than actually doing their job.
Well, yeah. I mean, they were in special measures, Devon and Cornwall, for several years. They only came out of special measures last summer, and based on what we've seen, Mike, they would have done better to stay in special measures. Right. I mean, people need to have security. I was speaking to someone who lives about a mile or so away, a couple of miles from where Anne lived, right? And they were very concerned because they themselves were like an elderly person. And they were sort of really confused that they'd been told on the one hand that, the Anne had been allegedly murdered. But then on the other hand, the police had let the guy go that they'd originally brought in. And they're thinking, I mean, and it's, by the way, there's nothing to be concerned about. And they were really concerned, as anyone would be living in that area, part of Devon. So,
well, exactly right. Because it seems as though, from what I understand anyway, and you may have heard the same, that the original arrest was of some hapless character who'd unfortunately just gone to deliver something at the house, and obviously they picked up his registration plate, and fair enough. But they made such a big thing of it, like, look at us, we've caught the guy, and then it was like, oh, actually no, it's not him.
It was very bizarre, and I also thought in the UK, where when someone's arrested under suspicion in these circumstances, the ethnicity of the person is very rarely ever mentioned. Yeah. I found it strange that they felt the need to tell us it was a white man. I mean, I couldn't care less what the ethnicity of the person was. I just wanted to make sure that the culprit is brought to book, And it was really strange that Devon and Cornwall seemed to virtue signal on every occasion. It's a white man. It's a white man. That's got nothing to do with it. Right. Is it the right man? Is it the guilty person? That's what they should have done. And they've evidently, I think they failed. And the fact that counter-terrorism has got involved basically undermines, Mike, everything they've told us since Friday of last week.
And you'd have to imagine, and Will Geddes is here with me, he might have a better clue than I have or you have as the police procedure. But, if you're going to look at two individuals, which they obviously ended up doing, why did they arrest the wrong guy first? Surely, if you were going to be trying to safeguard the public, you would arrest both of them. It seems as though they went for one guy and went, all right, let's go and get him, and then they didn't discover the other guy for another 24 hours.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I'm afraid it speaks to the decay in the efficacy of policing in the United Kingdom, which is something you don't want to see. I doubt anyone watching this wants to see that. But how can we have confidence? I mean, as you said, the first guy that they arrested, some 26-year-old, I think he was a local, and he just had the misfortune to be there. Surely they should have been more cautious in what they said. And now we're at the point anyway where it's all gone way beyond the Devon and Cornwall police. It's now become a counter-terrorism issue, and that makes it theoretically, a much more a national issue.
Yes. Well, it does.
Some
And
of
I
us
said this.
suspect-
I said this to Richard Tice earlier that because obviously they're very concerned about the motive and the wherewithal that this guy had and what he read and what radicalised him or whatever else. But also we now know that they've said also that they don't believe they're looking for anybody else. Well, now we don't even know if we can believe that because there might be a network of these characters that are doing this or who are about to do more. I don't know.
Well, that's right. I mean, we were told initially that it was someone with learning difficulties. That was the first story that came out. So this person with learning difficulties...
I think they're all in the police, aren't they? The people with learning difficulties. You haven't learned how to do their job.
Yeah, so he's one of those. But I mean, this guy, and this is a learning and difficulties guy. Is that a variation on the mental illness? That particular trope. Is that a variation in that? I'm not sure. But anyway, he then suddenly becomes. Today we read, Mike, in the media that counterterrorism found information relating to Russian propaganda. And therefore, well, how does this all link? Is this a person working alone? Is there a network, as you rightly say, of these individuals? And then I think also, Mike, a really salient question to ask is, what triggered this person? What triggered it? We've had weeks and weeks of reform being demonized in the media, through the mainstream media, horrible stories being put about them, I think grossly unfair. And the fact that we all understand this, there are people out there who are, mentally unstable, and maybe they do read these stories, totally believe them. They believe that Nigel Farage is a fascist and all the rest of it, and Richard and Tyson, the rest of them. And then they go on and act. I think we should be asking questions of the mainstream media as well as the Devon and Cornwall police. I think they've all got questions to ask.
Oh, for sure. There's been definitely a demonisation of reform, which for me has been quite clearly orchestrated from the beginning. Because I said to Richard, you can track when it started. You can see where the kind of, the playbook has been used, if you like. Let's start over here, start asking questions about Richard Tice's businesses. Then, if that doesn't work, start asking questions about his tax affairs. If that doesn't work, let's move on to Nigel Farage, who got some money. Some of the stuff that they've obtained, it would seem, has been obtained illegally as well from the National Crime Agency. And there's clearly, some kind of, connection there. Then let's go after, number of houses that he's got. Let's go after, this guy, George Cottrell, and what's he up to. And almost all of the allegations are what I would regard as minor, even you call them accounting errors, if you like. It was like the way they went after Trump, when they said, "Oh, he's a criminal. He's been found guilty in a criminal court in New York City." Well, no, he hasn't. It's an accounting error. At the very worst, you might say people will take a view that perhaps he's got a lot of money. Well, that's not illegal, is it, to have a lot of money, for heaven's sake?
No, but it's interesting because Trump was found guilty in that New York court by a Democrat-appointed judge, totally biased. And that makes me wonder, in this scenario with Nigel Farage, is he going to be found guilty, so to speak, by a standards commissioner who himself, we could, who is he to judge Nigel Farage or anyone else?
As you might well know, certainly I was at a do a couple of weeks ago, which some quite senior politicians were there, and I got the very firm impression that the decision had already been made, that the standards, they were all pretty sure that the standards commissioner was going to come out in favour of some kind of ban on Nigel Farage, and you can bet your bottom dollar if it was to cause a by-election, they would have banned him for 15 days, so that it would have to happen. So I think he pulled a great move by saying, actually we're going to have a by-election now and stuff you lot. And so people who say, "Oh, now he looks an idiot." Well, no, he doesn't. He only looks an idiot to the people working at the Times and the BBC. Right. Ordinary people are going, "Well, if you want to stand against him then."
Exactly right, Mike. You're right. And we have the ludicrous spectacle of the pro-establishment Jonathan Harvey, aka Count Binface, standing against him. And it speaks to me that Farage was in a very difficult set of circumstances. But I think, Mike, we can trace things back actually to May 7th. May 7th, reform had an amazing set of results across the
Yes.
country. You know, Scotland, Wales, and England, and it demonstrated that it's a plausible possibility that it could become a future government. I think since that date, they have done everything to try and derail reform, and Nigel Farage in particular. They're trying to learn from the Trump playbook, stop him before he gets in. So that's what this is about. But as I say, they've done this so manically that people out there read their headlines and think, oh yeah, he's a really bad guy. I've got to stop him. I've got to stop the UK being turned into a fascist state. And you know, this is where I feel that the standards, never mind standards commissioner in Parliament, standards when it comes to journalism in the mainstream is something, Mike, that I think we should be taking a very long, hard look at. Who are these people running these stories? As you rightly say, leaking stuff, sensitive stuff to try and do down reform. This is get reform. But the sad thing about it is, you know, like Anne Widdecombe was a senior reform spokesperson. And look at how this has ended. That's the tragedy in this one. We shouldn't forget. You know, as I know you don't. I like the photograph, by the way, you had of Anne. That's
it is. It's lovely, isn't it? It is an extraordinary. Yeah, no, it's great. Listen, it's great to talk to you, David, as ever. Thank you, for joining us, David Vance there.
Cheers.
He's right, isn't he? I mean, I think hadn't thought of the timing of it, but it's been since the election victory in reform.
It is
in May when they sort of swept the board. Yeah, it's all really got very intensive, hasn't it?
It's really picked up. I mean, there's a lot to unpick from what David was saying there. I mean, the first of which was, in terms of this Russian propaganda, that doesn't really help us. That doesn't really tell us anything. I mean, if you went to my bookshelf, I'm sure I've got some Tolstoy there, and I've got some, some biographies of Marx and whatever. Does that represent Russian propaganda? It doesn't really tell us.
As long as you've got some Solzhenitsyn, you'll be okay, I think. Is that kind of
I couldn't even spell that, Mike, let alone buy it. But
I mean, again, we don't know because they haven't told us, and I guess we won't find out until and unless there is a trial. In terms of what they found. But again, what they shouldn't have done was say there's absolutely no chance of this being the case before they'd searched the bleeding house.
Or his devices, for that matter. And it's standard. Everybody knows this. Everybody's seen it on countless occasions in the past, where if something gets addressed by counterterrorism, they're not only looking at the individual, they're looking at their home, they're looking at their devices, they're looking at all evidence they can potentially get to say, okay, this is what represents a potential terrorism suspect. And then going back to the other point that you raised, Mike, which was so valid, was about Richard Tice and his personal documentation. Now, the interesting thing is that his bank statements and his tax affairs and those sort of things, even the NCA can't get hold of that unless they have a specific request that's been authorised to do so. So there's a lot that Richard could dig down on that to find out what the chain of audit was.
My understanding of how it worked was that the banks approached the National Crime Agency. But again, this takes you back to the days of debanking.
The debanking thing,
Coots Bank and their sort of attitude to reform and their attitude to Nigel Farage. And it may well be the same applies to Richard Tice, whereby, you know, suddenly some bozo in the bank thinks, this is interesting. Why not report it to the National Crime Agency? Because, I mean, these things do happen.
But
it's
the
not a conspiracy theory to say that, you know, some lefty who works in a bank might have decided to report it.
But again,
that can happen.
I mean, there's compliance issues. I mean, I work with some of the big banks, and I know that they have very sophisticated departments that are looking at fraud and looking at anything inappropriate. It could be potential money laundering, all sorts of things like that. And to refer that forward to the NCA and the NCA to pick that up would need to have some really good credibility behind it. And I don't, and from what I know Richard. Do I know about his business affairs? No. But I'd say there's just something entirely inappropriate in terms of how it's gone from the bank to the NCA and then leaked out from the NCA. There's some serious problems here.
And you go all the way back to the conversations around certain other MPs in Parliament, certain other donations made to Labour and to the Conservatives and probably the Lib Dems and the Greens as well. All manner of complicated financial arrangements which have been made, which nobody's looking at. Whereas it's only Reform that apparently are the bad guys.
I stand with Nigel, particularly on the large proportion of that $5 million from George Cottrell being attributed to his own personal security, regardless of the fact that he could be awarded it by RAVEC, making their assessment that he does deserve it and merits it. The fact of the matter is, I've said this on a couple of other interviews, that in terms of his personal protection, if he's given it by the Home Office, he doesn't really have a say in what he's given and the people that he's given. By financing it himself, that gives him the privilege to be able to decide, has he got the right people who are going to work with him? Because having close protection is very inhibiting to a certain extent. It changes the pattern of your life. It changes your degree of privacy. It's something which a lot of people are very, very sort of resistant to necessarily having unless it's under duress. So the joy of having your own finance to pay for your own close protection, personal protection, allows you to be able to say, great, I feel comfortable with this guy, I don't feel comfortable with this guy. Even I will sit down with a client and say, look, if there's any reason, you don't need to give me a reason, the face doesn't fit for whatever reason, on a particular member of the team, you just tell me, we swap him out. And that's the privilege that he has if he can finance it himself, rather than just being encumbered with whatever he's given.
With whatever he's given, yeah, interesting. Will, great to see you. Thank you very
Always
much
lovely to
indeed.
see you, sir. Thank you for having me in.
No, not at all. Very good to have you and your expertise. We've got lots still to do. We're going to speak to Siobhan White, Rhiannon White's mother, coming up in this hour. We've got Ted Newsom as well. We'll talk to him about Ed Miliband's sudden newfound enthusiasm for drilling in the North Sea. Why? You ask? Well, it's because he wants to be Chancellor of the Exchequer and he wants to calm the markets, apparently. Also, Robert Midgley's here from British Overseas Territories. He's going to talk to us about Keir Starmer's sudden defence of the Falkland Islands and his attacks on Argentina, which are a bit unlike him, to be honest. First, though, should we get some news with Edward Hughes?
Hello, everyone. Edward the News Hughes here with your Tuesday Bulletin. Andy Burnham is on track to become the UK's next Prime Minister. The former Greater Manchester Mayor has secured overwhelming support from Labour MPs, positioning him to replace Keir Starmer without a full contest or general election. He's expected to enter Downing Street around July 20th. In a major development, counter-terrorism police have taken over the murder investigation into former Minister Anne Widdecombe. She was found dead at her Devon home with serious injuries last week. A man was arrested and later rearrested on terrorism-related suspicions after new evidence emerged. The probe is now treated as potentially politically motivated. Other headlines include UK moves to sanction Russian cyber networks and designate Iran's IRGC, alongside concerns over heatwave impacts. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Edward, thank you very much indeed. It's coming up to 2 minutes past 9. It is the Mike Graham Show, of course. Coming up at 10 o'clock, Kelvin Mackenzie will be here on a UK Live online place to find. We've got a new website, by the way, which we'll be plugging over the course of time, where you can also watch my show as well. We have massive audience this morning, so very grateful for that. Coming up, though, it's time to talk about British Overseas Territories, and not the Chagos Islands this time. Robert Midgley's here. Robert, very good morning to you.
Morning.
I remember the last time you were here, actually, and when just after you left, we all kind of went, we should have talked about the Falklands, because it's bound to come up. And funnily enough, here we are, obviously England playing Argentina tomorrow night in the World Cup, which I suppose has kind of focused everybody's minds on it. But largely, Keir Starmer yesterday reacting to what an Argentinian politician had said, that basically he thought that the British population of the Falklands was invalid, I think was his word, wasn't it?
Yeah, he said it was an artificially implanted population, which is hilarious coming from an Argentine who, if you look back in their ancestry, they're mainly Spanish or Portuguese anyway.
Right.
So, they raided the South America.
Colonialism's a funny thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Turns out it's happened to an awful lot of places.
Well, they raided the whole South America and killed the indigenous people of South America. And before Argentina even existed, the Falkland Islands was British.
Right.
So the two don't compare at all. And if you look at the Falkland Islands, you'll see that there's at least 8 generations of Falkland Islanders now. And before that, there's no one. Right. So, you can call it false as much as you want, but they had that referendum in 2013 that was pretty resounding at 99.8%.
Right.
So, there's no question about it.
It used to be in the old days that the Argentinians would only make noises about the Falklands when they were having sort of domestic difficulties and if their economy was down the toilet, and suddenly you'd hear either the president or somebody else coming out and going, we want the Falklands back, the Malvinas and all that. Yeah. I see Gary Lineker referred to it as the Malvinas the other day.
I mean, he's just an idiot anyway, isn't he?
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because not enough people say it. But yeah, I mean, so was Starmer's actually reaction been? Because unusually for him, he seems to have been quite patriotic.
Well, he's actually defended an overseas territory for once.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think in his whole time of being Premier, he's ever defended an overseas territory.
No.
So this is actually quite refreshing. Sad to say that he'll be leaving in a week's time.
Well, I mean, which brings us on again. We'll come back to Argentina in a minute, but it brings us back to Andy Burnham, who's going to be sort of. They keep saying the word coronated. I'm not keen on that word. It's sort of a coronated chicken, as it sounds like to me. But he's supposedly, according to Ross Kempsell, who I've been following recently, is going to carry on with the sell-off of the Chagos Islands, which seems extraordinary.
I mean, if you look at the Labour manifesto, it does say very plainly that, all the overseas territories must be defended, they must support self-determination. So he'll be going against the manifesto once again if he does do that. But in my opinion, it's going to be almost impossible to bring back the Chagos deal right now because you need to change the 1966 agreement with the Americans. And if Trump won't change that, they can't bring back the bill to Parliament. So I don't see how there's a route right now to bring it back. Lord Hermer still thinks he can get it back through Parliament in July. It's absolutely delusional for saying that. But yeah,
I mean,
cannot
they've got
see
about a week
route
left, haven't they? I mean, July. You say July, but I mean, it's only really until I think middle of next week. that Parliament's sitting.
The soonest time that Burnham could bring it in is probably in September after parliamentary recess. But then if he still doesn't have support of the Americans, Trump to change that 1966 agreement, there is no way he can bring it back to Parliament. You just can't bring it back. So in my opinion, it might be dead for like the next few years.
Yeah.
That's my opinion anyway.
And they're still trying, I think, are they not, to evict, if you like, for want of a better word, Mizzy Mandarin and the group of people from the Chagos Islands who are currently living there.
Yeah, so the court cases continued tomorrow, and that's all about the government repealing against Misley being on the island. You know, a few months ago we overturned the right to abode, and we've kept Misley on the island. The judges ruled that actually Misley does have a case for being on the island, having that right to live there, dating back to his ancestral roots. But the thing is that, they're now appealing against that decision, the right that he should be there. And so if Misley loses tomorrow, he could be evicted, which would be a PR disaster for them.
Because how would they do that exactly? Would they send, because Misley's always said that he would defend his right to be there with his life, frankly. So, I mean, would they send a kind of an armed unit to remove him or something?
I'd imagine something like that,
really? I mean, that's such a bad look, wouldn't it?
But I mean, we've actually got quite a strong case that we may win it. So it could continue for about 3 days, the court case in total. But we do have an incredibly strong defence. And if we do win it, the next time the government can repeal against that again will be around September, October time. So the longer we keep them there, the harder it will get for them to evict him. So there is a pathway where we can, in that time, secure him being there permanently. In my opinion, we've secured the Chagos Islands for now. We've defeated it in Parliament, and now we need to look at all the resettlement options and make the government aware about this. We came up with a paper recently which was all about resettling Chagos Islands, the legals behind it, how we would do it. And the FCGO had no ambition to actually carry something like that out. So we've been putting it in front of officials and they're like, oh, this is all new to us. And it's like, no, it's just you've been really unambitious with, trying to protect British sovereign territory. And actually, if you do look at it, you'll realise there is actually a case and there's a way how to secure British sovereign territory, secure Diogo Garcia, and be able to, correct that mistake of the past.
Yeah. It is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, does he have any rights? I think I might have asked you this last time you were here. Does he have any rights of kind of tenure, depending on how long he's there? The longer he's there, the more likely he can stay. You know what I mean? Squash his rights. Why not?
About that. But it will get harder for them to evict him the longer that he is there, in my opinion.
Right. And in terms of the way that you're able to fund all of this, how does that work? Because obviously lawyers aren't cheap. I mean, court cases are not cheap.
Well, we're incredibly fortunate to have James Tunbridge with us, who has done a lot of this for free, and he's leading the court case. On the other side of things, I think Chris Harbour and Nigel Farage have been funding another legal agency to fund other immigration routes for Chagosians and helping them out financially in some other areas. But yeah, we rely on donations a lot of the time. Friends of British Overseas Territories does help fund court cases as well for Chagosians. So we rely on people being free.
So if you
mostly.
if people wanted to give you money, if they wanted to donate to you, where do they do that?
We have a pot on fotbot.org for the Chagos cause, and also you can go on Just Giving, I think.
Yeah.
And there's several pots that you can donate, and it'll go to whatever cause you want.
Right.
But yeah, we are actively looking for donations on that front.
Okay. And so as far as going back to the Falklands, if Starmer is going to be reasonably defensive of it, well, that's obviously a good thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully there isn't any real need for an alarm for anybody.
Well, no, and Argentina are very jealous of the Falkland Islands. You look at the Falkland Islands economy; it's one of the best performing in the southern hemisphere. It's got a booming tourism industry, a booming fishing industry. You can buy the lobsters in Harrods, I believe, and they've just discovered oil there, and it's expected to create billions of pounds of revenue in the years to come. And Argentina is very, very jealous about that. Not to mention the minerals that's recently discovered as well. So it's all really good for them. You've got overseas territories throughout the South Atlantic who, they want to go and live and work in the Falkland Islands because it's doing very, very well.
Yeah.
So I can 100% understand why Argentina, whose economy is not doing very well, and get very jealous of the small rocks, in the South Atlantic that are doing well.
Yeah. Well, we're still keen to go down and do a couple of shows down there, so hopefully we might.
Yeah, you should take Starlink with you though, because internet is extortionate.
Yes, absolutely right. We're told that you can. I mean, it takes quite a long time to get down there as well, doesn't it?
About 19 hours, yes.
Yeah,
and you can fly with the RAF down, and they'll take you direct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see if we can sort that out. That'd be great. Robert, good to see you. Thank you very
No
much.
problem.
Indeed.
Thank
Robert
you.
Midgley there from British Overseas Territories. Good news. Occasionally. Lynn's arrived. I didn't hear you coming in. My friend Lynn McCrossan-Coleman is here. We're all the way from Guernsey. It took less time to get from Guernsey to London than it did from London City Airport, was it? To here? Yeah. Unbelievable. We've got plenty to do still. We've got to talk to Siobhan White about the situation regarding Anne Widdecombe. Obviously, Ted Newsom's going to come in and tell us why he thinks Ed Miliband's suddenly gone mad and wants to drill in the North Sea. Who can say? Is it because he wants to be Chancellor of the Exchequer? Very possibly. Should we play a little clip before we talk to Siobhan?
Yeah,
yesterday, Luke Evans, who's a Conservative MP, was asking questions in the House of Commons about how many migrants are actually still in the hotel business. Have a look.
Now, the Home Secretary is boasting about the fact that hotel asylum seekers numbers are being reduced, but of course they're being moved into HMOs, and the government won't produce the actual figures of how many are going into HMOs, which means places like Hinckley and Bosworth are getting more HMOs. So will the government commit to produce the data to show exactly where people are being moved from and to, so we can see it specifically around HMOs, because it is not in the data and has not been released in the quarterly data? I'd be grateful for an answer.
I'm slightly saddened by the Honourable Gentleman's question. He and I had a very, very good conversation about the nature of the supported population in his constituency. He knows that we work very closely under a policy of successive governments for full dispersal, so that the challenge of supporting the supported population is shared more fairly. Where there have been local disproportionate issues, like in postcodes of his own, we were able to make positive changes there. I would have hoped he would have recognised that. But to be very clear on his original point, if he talks about data, the May stats release show a reduction in the hotel population of 35% and an increase. If the Honourable Gentleman, he can do the questions, he can't do the answers as well. If he would, a reduction in 35% in hotel population and an increase in the supported population of less than 1%. Even he can do those maths.
Yeah, and there we are, the government being slightly disingenuous, as ever, talking about the number of migrants. Of course, what we know from Shabana Mahmood is that she hasn't actually done anything to reduce the numbers coming in. They have reduced the numbers in some hotels because they've moved them into houses of multiple occupancy, which is actually no better than putting them in hotels. They keep talking about reforming the system and kicking out more people and deporting more people, but we know now that actually what looks likely to happen is that people will get the right to remain here, leave to remain, and be granted to them within 5 years instead of 10, which was the original plan. Let's talk now, though, to Siobhan White, who is, of course, mother of Rhiannon White, who was murdered brutally. Morning, Siobhan. How are you?
Not bad, thanks. You?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. It's not been a very pleasant few days, though, after what happened to Anne Widdecombe. We still don't know precisely what the reasoning or the motivation was behind it, but we can be pretty sure it wasn't just a random attack. But you met Anne Widdecombe, I believe, didn't you?
Yeah, I think it was February.
Yeah.
Her PA, or whatever she is, Elaine, contacted me.
Yeah.
And we met Anne up at Bescot train station, actually, yeah.
Wow. And she just wanted to know about your story and about what the fight and battle is for trying to get some kind of justice properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was lovely. I mean, we laughed because when we got up there, it was pouring down with rain and it was cold. And she sat in the car talking to a reporter. And I thought, gosh, she's never going to get out. And she got out and she was just laughing and joking about it. And she asked about Rhiannon, how we were getting on, why haven't A, B, and C reached out and met us, and remember telling us to keep fighting.
Yeah. And the last time we spoke, I always ask you the same question. Have you heard anything from Downing Street?
No.
I still find that extraordinary. I mean, for those who don't know, you've been trying to get a meeting with Keir Starmer. You've sent letters in which have never been answered. I think you finally got one answer from an aide who kind of didn't really say very much of anything helpful.
No, I know Lord Folkes contacted me, and then he sent an email to somebody else. I can't remember who. And then they emailed me back, the usual rubbish.
Yeah.
Oh, we will look into this, but nothing. I've reached out to Italian and German embassies, nothing. Nothing from Shabana Mahmood.
Yeah.
But was it last Tuesday she put out a bill saying that it was kind of the criminals inside, illegals, would do 30% of their sentences and then get sent back. So it's kind of, then it's the one in, one out.
Right.
Absolutely nothing.
No. Well, that's the problem. I mean, they keep talking about changing the system, but they haven't really changed the system. And the one in, one out thing is a complete joke now. And we did a story last week where we discovered, Siobhan, that apparently the government are paying 30 million quid to some offshore wind farm company because they want to use their ships to help to deliver more illegal migrants when they get stuck in the channel. So, they can talk a good game. They can say that they're going to do things differently and they're going to let fewer people in and we're going to deport more people, but none of it actually happens, does it?
No, I mean, they're on about these boats, bringing them in, etc. But if they didn't allow them in, Mike, we wouldn't have this problem of getting them back out. But while they're allowing it, I'm taking the mick out of this country, to be honest. What about us? What about us as citizens of our country? And they're saying about it, they're coming in like this Shabana Mahmood and this bill. If they're here, they'll do 30% of their sentence. This struck up with me with that thing that killed Rhiannon. Yes, he got 29 years, but will he be deported after so long? Because I know, go back to Sudan. He won't be there to serve the rest of his sentence. He'll get up and he'll go to another country.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening. And I'll just, you keep fighting and fighting and fighting, Mike, and I'm absolutely getting nowhere. And like you say, she's putting millions into France. They're letting them over. They're coming in from Belgium. Where else are they coming in from?
Well, that's right. I mean, anywhere you mention.
Yeah.
It's dreadful. I mean, they've admitted as well that they can't really even guarantee that this horrible Pakistani rape sort of mastermind who's just been released from prison, they want to get rid of him. But they're saying, even though they've changed the law, actually, if Pakistan doesn't want him back, they can't deport him ananyway.
Send him somewhere else then.
Well, you would think, wouldn't you?
Yeah, why should he be allowed here to... We know he's going to still be in with his group and he's going to carry on doing the same thing. But there's thousands. I mean, everybody's going about Muslims, they're going about Pakistanis, they're going about this. They're not all the same. We all know this. Not every single Pakistani, Muslim, black person, Afghan are the same. But how many have we got now? 100,000, 200,000?
Yeah.
And there is a crime once, twice, 3 times a day.
Yeah.
But again, they're not, I've reached out about setting up Rhiannon's law, not heard anything.
No.
It's
It's
just,
shocking, really, isn't it?
it's kicking the teeth to us all, really.
Yeah. Yeah, because they talk, as I say, they talk a good game, but they don't actually feel it. It doesn't feel like they want to do anything about it, does it?
No, you've got Starmer, anything to do with Muslims, anything to do with other cultures. He's all up there on X, giving his sympathies. But he doesn't want to meet somebody whose daughter grew up in this country, was murdered by one of these scumbags, and he's totally ignored me. Now, we've got Andy Burnham coming in. Do I think he's going to be as bad? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I think we're doomed, really.
Yeah, I mean, it really is terribly depressing when you think about it like that.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
And
all
it
you
is
can
now
do...
with that. They arrested a 25-year-old. Now they arrested a 28-year-old.
Yeah.
But who's going to travel so many miles? Was it 3 hours away to murder someone? We don't know if he had connections with this woman. No, I think it's all a hush hush. Let's keep it quiet thing.
Yeah. It's really not going to, and it's not going to get any better. No, Siobhan, listen, all we can do is wish you well. If there's anything we can do, we'll try. What about your local MP?
Well, obviously, as you know before, he only reached out to me after like 15 months. I have reached out to him.
Yeah.
I've sent him an email because I don't want to really go into it too much, but I received an email from the Home Office. It wasn't the best. So I reached out to him and I had to basically say, right, this is where I'm going now. I'm going to go down the way of suing the government. And this needs to be put in place. This needs to be put in place. And when I'm speaking to his words, I'm speaking to somebody from the Home Office on the 15th tomorrow. Okay. I'll let you know. Well, that's not good enough for me because I don't know if this thing that murdered Rhiannon is still going to be. Is he going to be deported? Is he going to serve a small amount of his sentence and get sent back? Is he going to stay? I know it's our taxpayers' money, and I know he doesn't even deserve the right to live. To be honest with you, Mike. No. But my fear is if he gets out, he'll go somewhere else and do it again because realistically, we don't know his age. We don't even know that's his real name because Sudan wouldn't tell Interpol anything.
Right.
But does Starmer care? Absolutely no. Not a thing.
Unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. But I think maybe soon the government's the way to go. That could be good.
That would be my next step because you know what? Even acknowledgement. Just to acknowledge the fact months ago when I contacted this moron to say, we've acknowledged it, sit and talk to me. Alex Norris refused a friend of mine at the time to go down. Well, then I felt like I was being dictated to, so I said no. But realistically, where would that have got me? Because it would have just been more rubbish to spout at me, to make me think, let's sit silent. Well, I won't sit silent, Mike. That's the problem. And they probably don't like it. But if I keep fighting and I will keep going for this government and I keep being, I don't care if you're Andy Burnham, Keir Starmer, Tony Blair, whoever, my last thing in all this will be, I will sue you.
Yeah.
And every penny will go towards Rhiannon's little boy and the children left behind. That will be it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good idea. Really good idea. And if you need any help finding lawyers and stuff, let us know.
Oh, well, thank you.
All right. Rhiannon, good to see you. Look after yourself. And we'll see you soon. Siobhan, who is, of course, the mother of Rhiannon White, so brutally murdered by an illegal migrant. And she's always in our thoughts as well. Amazingly brave woman. And I think she should sue the government because what have they ever done to make her feel that she can't even get an answer out of Downing Street. She can't even get an audience with the Prime Minister, which is pretty shameful, you'd have to say. Would you not? Coming up, we're going to be talking to Ted Newson in a moment. My friend Lynn McCrossan is here as well. We'll talk to her. But before that, I think we should have a little bit of a meltdown about the police. Isn't it amazing how often the police get it wrong? You have to go back not that many years to see when it all started, when they all started to get a bit politically correct, when they started using different terms, when they started talking about the ethnicity of people who were arrested, or when they didn't talk about the ethnicity of people who were arrested. Go all the way back to Southport in 2024 and that horrible, ghastly episode where the man who I do not name attacked young girls in a dance class dedicated to Taylor Swift. He was described by the police as Welsh. He was described by the police as a choir boy. It turned out that the police deliberately misled the public while at the same time telling them not to speculate. Same thing happened with Henry Novak, with the most recent case, the 18-year-old boy who was stabbed to death and was visited by the police as he was dying and told, "I don't think you've been stabbed, mate. You've been racially abusing this other guy who's the one with the knife." What a terrible, terrible indictment of the way that the police operate. Well, now we've got Devon and Cornwall police who don't seem to know their arse from their elbow. They came out on Sunday after having arrested the wrong man for the murder of Anne Widdecombe to say that they'd arrested a new man for the murder of Anne Widdecombe, but there was definitely no political motivation for the murder. Have a look at what they had to say at the weekend.
Our investigation into the death of 78-year-old Anne Widdecombe has continued to develop over the past 24 hours. Shortly after 9 p.m. on Saturday, the 11th of July, a 28-year-old white British man was arrested at an address in Rotherham, South Yorkshire, on suspicion of the murder of Miss Widdecombe. We were supported by officers from Counter-Terrorism Police North East and South Yorkshire Police who carried out the arrest on behalf of Devon and Cornwall. Miss Widdecombe's family have been informed of the updates and continue to be supported by our specialist officers. Our thoughts remain with her family and friends at this incredibly difficult time. At this point, there is still no information to suggest that this is a terrorism-related incident, and at this point, we are not looking for anyone else in connection with this murder. We retain primacy of this investigation, and detectives remain open-minded about the potential motive. At this stage, there is nothing to suggest that it was politically motivated. A cordon is still in place as officers continue inquiries at the scene, and we anticipate...
So no political motivation then, according to the Deputy Chief Constable of Devon and Cornwall Police. Here are the front page headlines this morning. Anne Copp's terror probe, that's the Sun. Widdecombe's murder was political, Daily Mail. Widdecombe murder case taken over by terror cops, The Times. Police under fire over Widdecombe case, The Telegraph. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. People make mistakes. People are willing to accept that, the police included. But they didn't make a mistake. They deliberately tried to mislead the public, because how could they possibly know there was no political involvement if they hadn't searched the bloke's house? They've now searched the bloke's house and searched his devices and discovered that actually, there was a political motivation. So why say it in the first place? All they've done is upset the family that they keep saying they want to protect and mislead the public. So now we've got the terror police from the southeast of England in charge of the case. We still don't know whether there's anybody else involved. They said there isn't. But how do we know that's true? Because they might have got that wrong as well. Just ridiculous. So it's time to say to the police in this country, get a grip, guys. You're supposed to be capable. You're supposed to be able to arrest the bad guys. We can't expect you to stop every crime that's going to be committed. But if there is a crime committed, at least try and get the investigation of it right. It's not asking too much, is it? It's like me turning up in the morning and not being able to speak. It's your job. Find out what's going on. Don't lie to the public. And do your bloody job. It's that simple, isn't it? That's my meltdown for the day. So, We're into the last half hour of the show. It's 9:30 already. Can't believe it. Kelvin Mackenzie coming up at 10 o'clock on UK Live Online. We've got a new website, by the way, which is very exciting stuff. And also, we've now even got a merch store where you can buy stuff. Donald's Merch Store, it's called. One size fits all. He's only got T-shirts in one size. But don't worry, because they do fit everybody, pretty much. Has to be said. Ted Newson's here. Ted, very good to see you.
Good morning to you,
Thanks
Mike.
for coming in.
Thank you.
A good day to come in as well, because a couple of interesting stories on the front page of the, well, two or three actually, on the front pages this morning. We've got Ed Miliband, who apparently now is going to approve some North Sea oil drilling, because apparently he thinks that will help him become Chancellor of the Exchequer, because it will calm the markets. I mean, this is a guy who's been a net zero zealot for longer than I can remember. I mean, why has he suddenly changed his tune?
Yeah, well, it's blatant opportunism, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah.
For years and years, we've had, even before the election, Ed Miliband was saying, we're not going to drill in the North Sea. This is an ironclad commitment. We've got to get to net zero. We've got to get off this roller coaster of fossil fuels. No to Jackdaw, no to Rosebank.
Yeah.
And in this kind of massive net zero U-turn that he's gone about with, he's said, no, actually, we're going to approve Jackdaw.
Yeah.
As long as I get Chancellor, of course.
Yeah.
Let's just settle the markets.
You sure he's not trying to apply for a job with the Devon and Cornwall Police, you know, Captain U-turn, because that's what he's good at, right?
Clueless.
Yeah, completely clueless, but also really shameless. This is the thing that I find extraordinary with these people, is that they're just completely shameless. They'll tell you one thing yesterday, and then today they'll go, oh yeah, well that was yesterday.
Absolutely. I don't know how he defends it to himself. And I think what he's doing is, because he's looking to approve Jackdaw but not to approve Rosebank. Rosebank was the oil one, Jackdaw is the gas one.
Okay.
He's probably defending himself as, oh no, we haven't gone ahead with the oil one. This is just the gas. This is a bit cleaner. But honestly, the amount of horrible language, he called drilling in Rosebank a climate catastrophe, I think. So what's the difference between that and Jackdaw?
Yeah, right. Because I was hearing somebody talking this morning on another station on the way into work that we've got probably at least another 10 years or so of the requirement to use gas for most of the heating that the country needs, right? So even if he didn't drill in Jackdaw for more gas, we'd still be using gas for the next 10 years anyway, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And he comes out and, well, the spokesman for Ed Miliband said this morning that he's not a zealot, which only a very zealoty MP would probably get someone to go out and say.
That's like a guy saying, I'm not in the mafia, right?
I know.
I'm not in the mafia.
Well, he's decommissioned a third of our refining capacity in, 2 years since the election?
Right.
The last carbon budget, he said he wanted dietary changes. He wanted people to adopt a more plant-based diet.
Yeah.
Ludicrous.
No bacon for him then.
No bacon for him, of course.
Yeah,
only vegan sandwiches.
Yeah, unbelievable. The other interesting one today, which is going on, is the National Grid blackout story. I was talking to Catherine the other day about this. Catherine, what's her name?
Catherine Porter.
Hey?
Porter.
Catherine Porter, that's right. Sorry, my brain went blank there for a minute. And she was talking about this, that the National Grid has been several times this year under severe pressure and has come very close to blackouts, partly because of their reliance on wind and solar and not getting it right, not getting the mix right. But there now is an actual investigation going on inside of the National Grid because people have been trying to cover it up and they don't want us to know just how fragile the National Grid actually is.
This is an unelected quango that is dedicated to keeping the grid balanced, and by their own mandate, they've failed.
Yeah.
And so they've been covering their own tracks, or at least that's what it looks like. You look at the whistleblower that reported to Claire Coutinho the other day about these cover-ups, and it seems like it's been happening on a grand scale. And is what the Global Warming Policy Foundation has been saying for years now, that they're not being truly upfront with the figures. Intermittency is costing our bill payers, and it's actually costing our energy security. And someone like Catherine Porter has now come out and said that there's a reasonable chance of regional blackouts and a 5 to 10 chance, I believe, of full-scale grid failure.
Well, she was telling me that it's been literally seconds away from a blackout, or what they used to call in America a brownout, where it's just a slightly lesser version of it, where it's a little bit more localised. But still, we don't really know how this National Grid operation works, do we? Because they don't really tell us what their capacities are. They don't tell us what their protocols are. What do you understand them to be in terms of what the mix is meant to be?
Well, I think they like to cloud the debate. I think they like to make it sound very clever. In essence, what it is when we can, we will use wind and solar panels.
Yeah.
Essentially, because it's got no marginal cost to it, doesn't cost any more to blow a bit more wind or for the sun to shine a bit more.
Right.
It's a low marginal cost. But what they forget is that the wind isn't always blowing and the sun's not always shining. So when that doesn't happen, they need the backup capacity. And that comes from gas and, well, it used to come from coal.
Yeah.
And now we don't have that. So we're looking towards nuclear, albeit very slowly. Ed Miliband is, I think he's nuclear curious at best. But
Yes.
that's the best you could say about
Nuclear
him.
curious. Wasn't there a big sort of announcement by Starmer at one point in the first year of his government about building these small modular nuclear power stations around the country? What's happened to that then?
Well, the whole government's gone quiet on it.
Yeah.
I was speaking to a former energy minister the other day. He thinks they're a racket. I'm not sure. I haven't heard enough about them. But, well, that's probably due to the government because they've completely dropped it.
But this
from
is the
their,
thing. This
from their
is
policy.
what's marked Starmer's. Starmer makes a lot of noise about his achievements, and he spent the last 2 weeks telling us about his achievements. But I mean, there's an awful lot of stuff that he said he was going to do that just hasn't happened, isn't it?
Yeah, well, stop the boats, smash the gangs.
Yeah. The modular nuclear power stations that he's going to build.
SMRs, what else? Get to net
HS2.
zero, that's going to fail. We've been saying it's going to fail for a while.
Yeah.
HS2 is in the bin. Starmer's in the bin. Burnham's coming in. And he's not going to be any better. He's going to be even worse.
What
for the
do you
economy.
reckon his view of net zero is? Because, I mean, he'll presumably flip-flop around on it for a while.
I don't know. I don't know how you can be pro-smoking mills and pro-net zero at the same time.
Yeah, right.
So
yeah,
we'll have to see about that.
Yes. Well, he's very pro the north, isn't he? So
he's very pro the north. You're not going to have many factories in the north if we get to net zero, are you?
No, I don't think so. And then the other great story today for me is the electric vehicle story about how they're trying to introduce this pay-per-mile business, which is not particularly, I know, a net zero style story, but it kind of is, because they've been trying to get everybody into electric cars for so long. Now they're punishing them for getting electric cars, and they're now talking about not only charging them to drive per mile in the UK, but actually charging them for driving on the continent in Europe. So if you take your electric vehicle over to France, as some people we know do, they'll charge you, which seems incredibly outrageous to me.
Crazy. I think the government is rolling back on its subsidies now because they realise the true extent of the green subsidies. I mean, this is billions of pounds we've frittered away on kind of political passion projects rather than looking into an actual grid transition based on nuclear or some kind of firm power as opposed to the windmills.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's just an extraordinary state of affairs. And meanwhile, we've got water companies still that can't produce water. Who ask people not to use it because they'd rather they didn't. Although today, apparently, if you're on benefits, you're told you can use as much as you like. What's the situation with reservoirs? Because maybe you can explain this to me. People always say, the thing is, we haven't built any reservoirs because they're not environmentally sound. What's the actual argument for that?
I'm genuinely speechless if someone's making that argument. That is...
They say, that's what they say.
That is idiotic,
They say
honestly.
That's the reason they haven't built any since like 1991 or 2.
92, that was it.
So the reason is that they're not friendly to the environment, apparently.
We've got a hosepipe ban in Essex, Mike, and it's because we haven't built a reservoir since, I think, the 60s. So you're talking about one of the sunniest and driest parts of the country anyway.
Yeah.
You add probably millions of people into the county since the last reservoir was built, and then you're surprised when we're running low on water. It's just, they don't understand it.
No, it is extraordinary, isn't it? So we've got a big thing coming up this week that we're involved in. CPAC is here. I don't know if you guys are involved in it with the Global Warming Policy Foundation. Well, you should be, because it's a bunch of right-wingers getting together to sort out the world.
We should. I'm still tired from ARC, quite frankly, Mike.
Yeah, I bet you are. Absolutely. Well, listen, good to see you, Ted. Ted Newson there from the Global Warming Policy Foundation, trying to make sure that we get some sense around the world of net zero. But I'm not quite sure whether Andy Burnham's going to supply it. Do you reckon Miliband's going to become the next Chancellor of the Exchequer then?
Well, I was checking the Polymarket odds this morning, and it's got him at over 60% to be Chancellor now. So I won't pretend we're not worried. A lot of people are kind of in denial in the organisation, saying, no, it can't possibly happen. You can't possibly do even more damage. But, I mean, for a long time, I thought Rachel Reeves was probably one of the most economically illiterate chancellors Britain has ever had.
Yeah.
And now we're saying, oh, let's get Ralph Miliband's son in.
Yeah, right.
Proper crackpot.
Yeah, he really is a crackpot. Very good description of him. I quite like that. Right, well, listen, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Good to see you, Mike.
We'll see if we can get you a mention in with Liz Truss at the CPAC thing. A couple of super chats to come. Margaret says it's absolute rubbish that reservoirs are not environmentally sound. Clapworthy Reservoir in Somerset, I remember being built, and it is surrounded with wildlife. I used to take my kids on nature walks there. Well, yeah, of course it's absolute rubbish, but the fact is, it's not me saying it. It's the environmental nutters who think that they can stop any reservoir being built because apparently it disturbs the wildlife. Remember Anne and all she stood for, says Fraser, absolutely. This one from Mr. Malaprop. I turned off UK Live yesterday when Kelvin and his guests repeatedly called a man who spoke so cruelly about Anne a woman. That'll be that Heather creature, no doubt, up in the north of Britain. Anne was a truth speaker in an age of cowardice. I'm bereft. Anne has been taken from us. Should we play that little tribute that we did yesterday to Anne again? Can we do it?
Because I've not uploaded it because you didn't want it.
Well, I said that. Well, I just said keep it, didn't I?
I'll find it.
You can find it, I'm sure. I'll tell you what we can play in the meantime. Molly Kingsley has put a little video out on censorship.
You only have to look at the title, which is it's called Watch This Space. I mean, the whole thing is just full of this Orwellian doublespeak. So, a new strategic direction for UK media. You think, what? It will certainly mean that what you see online in your social media feeds is weighted towards the public service broadcaster content. So I think we can expect that, the kind of independent content that we all produce is going to be buried.
Years. There's an awful lot of nonsense being spoken about the censorship bill and the online safety bill and the clampdown on free speech, the clampdown on YouTube, the way that the government wants to be able to sort of somehow now redirect your attention to what they call trusted media sources like the BBC and ITV and Sky. Really? So we're going to fight all of that. And of course, as I said earlier, we're going to be at CPAC starting up on Wednesday until Saturday it runs. And it's going to be a collection of all sorts of people. Being organised by Liz Truss, former Prime Minister, because the CPAC organisation in America is one of the places where the Trump movement kind of began and where basically people realised that you could start a fundraising campaigning group which was outside the Republican Party, and so similarly CPAC is outside of any political party. But Nigel Farage is going to be speaking. I'm going on a panel down there with a couple of politicians and a couple of voices from America as well. It's going to be a massive thing, and it's all going on. We'll bring you coverage of it over the course of the next 2 to 3 days. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled. Now, coming up, hey?
I've got it.
Have you got it? All right, let's play it. This is a tribute put together lovingly by Charlotte about Anne Widdecombe yesterday. Have a look.
I thought I had it.
Oh, you thought you had it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, I'm sure you'll get it back in a minute. Meanwhile, let me say hello to Lynn McCrossan-Coleman, who's here, my old friend from...
I do like that you double barrel my name and it's not my name anymore. I like that when you're in this position, you revert to 20 years of friendship.
Is it not then Lynn
no,
McCrossan-Coleman?
it's just Lynn Coleman.
Is it just Lynn Coleman? Oh, okay. Well, I just think of you as Lynn McCrossan.
I know.
So I have to say McCrossan and then remember to add the Coleman bit at the end. But Lynn is I don't think we had you on the old show, didn't we, at all?
We've
but
never
you haven't
done
been
this
on this
before.
one. Lynn and I used to work together in Scotland many, many years ago, all years. It was the start of my radio career.
I could tell where the bodies are kept.
You can, which is why
So maybe I shouldn't be here.
This is why I keep you sweet. Back in 2006, 7, was it?
Yeah, right at the inception.
Yeah, and Lynn was, like we all were, much younger in those days, and she used to turn up every day at the office, and I used to say to her, and for some bizarre reason they made me the programme director, which was pretty funny in itself, right? And she kept turning up, and
Excuse me, I kept turning up. I did have a job, but you're referring to
No, you didn't know, but at the beginning you didn't know. I tell people this story all the time, because at the beginning she'd turn up, and I go, "What are you doing here?" She's like, "I want a job." And I used to say, well, we haven't got any jobs. And then she would turn up the next day and say, I want a job. And then she'd turn up the next day and say, I want a job. And eventually I went, all right, well, go and sort out those people over there who are doing the drive time show, right? Something like that.
Yes.
Was it Dominic Diamond?
But no, it was not. Thank goodness. I've had many a run-in with that man.
Have you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hi,
he's
Dominic.
a bit strange.
Hope you're happy in Nova Scotia.
Yeah. Is it still there?
I hope so.
Somewhere in Canada, yeah. But they deserve it. So it was after that then?
Yeah, no, we launched that station 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But you were doing the mid-morning show.
I was.
And I came in to produce Adrian Allen.
Oh, right, okay.
Do you remember
of course,
that?
I do remember him. Where's he now?
I have no idea. I actually have no idea.
Right.
I mean, I speak to many of our alums, and quite a lot of them have gone on and done spectacular things.
Yes, an interesting thing.
Yeah, they really have. But yeah, you got to basically run amok for 10 years and really learn how to do this.
Yes.
Without social media.
Yeah.
And without, people being able to trail you. And so, yeah, your apprenticeship has served you well.
It was good. I mean, one of the funniest things, which was sort of putting the cart before the horse, and I was accused later by a guy who's still now quite a big noise at News UK of wasting £5 million of their money. But it wasn't actually my fault, because they had decided that they were going to, plug this whole thing. It was actually Calvin Mackenzie that bought the station in the first place when he was still running TalkSport. But they had me on the side of
buses, I remember.
Taxis.
I was furious that I wasn't on the side of them.
Well, you should have been.
Then maybe we would have had an audience.
And I remember getting a call from somebody once who was on a motorbike, and he said, I came around the corner down somewhere in Leith, and there was this massive, 90-sheet poster of you.
With barbed wire behind you.
With barbed wire behind me. And so it was a very interesting time. But you, meanwhile, have gone on to bigger and better things. I mean, you're now this
life is nice.
Very successful entrepreneur.
Oh, thank you.
Are you not?
Life is really genuinely
Fashion
lovely.
business going?
I do. I have a cashmere business, but that's not why we're here. I'm here to get under the hood of this place. I honestly...
Isn't it great? What do you think of it?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I can't believe that you've done this in 6 months. I really
I
can't.
know. Well, I mean, it's better than that. You maybe not have met... You probably haven't met Pooch yet. You met Charlotte. But Pooch is the man who put all this together, right? Because not only is he in a sort of an incredibly skilled broadcast engineer, stroke producer, stroke
genius,
everything.
Some Svengali.
Yeah, he is. But we actually had this place about 4 days before we were due to launch it on the Monday. And we finally, because we looked at a couple of places, and we finally thought we didn't want to go to a studio where we had to just rent the space, because we thought we want to have it as our own. So, like, for example, we were always going to do a show on Sunday, which if we had to rent studio space, you'd go, well, you've got to pay money for that. And whereas now we can come and do a show anytime we want. If you say to me, I fancy doing a show at 2 o'clock in the morning, we could come and do a show at 2 o'clock in the morning. We just have to find Charlotte and see what she was doing. But,
some producers.
But she sleeps here. Yeah.
Well, having said that, so we had a rolling 24-hour newsroom. Hence, back to the 5 million. I thought we only hemorrhaged 3 million. I think that they've inflated that. It was $1 million a year at Talk. For 3 years. It wasn't your fault.
But they spent a lot of money on stupid things, like they had all the
like Dominic Diamond.
Yeah, and then the advertisers, the advertising salespeople all had their own cars.
I know, I remember.
Branded cars.
Yeah.
And a couple of the news reporters had branded cars.
Yes, they did.
So there were about 5 or 6 cars.
They needed that because that was technically marketing. So it's going through the city, technically.
But that's where the money went, and that's where we now, because of course the way that we do things nowadays, this is relatively cheap. I'll tell you what, have you got the Jacob Rees-Mogg thing? Where he talks about us.
Let's see.
Let me see if you can find that, since you can't find the other one.
No.
I'm not
He's putting you under way too much pressure to do
I'm not trying to be mean.
Can I just say I've produced him in the past when the chief of staff was not in the building, and I would have to go in and tinkle your whatnots.
And it was always a very pleasurable experience.
Was it really?
It was.
I loved it too. So I understand when you're thrown on the spot.
Yeah.
I can give you a picture of him if that helps.
No, I was hoping for the clip of him telling us all how brilliantly we're doing. That's the thing I was hoping for.
I will get it, don't worry.
Yeah.
But wait, hold on. I want to go back. Where did the 5 million come from? Because this has enraged me this morning.
That was the whole. I think that was the whole time that from the moment it started.
Yeah.
Which was when I was just hired to be the mid-morning presenter. So it wasn't that I actually was accused of wasting, but it was from the moment it started, which was back end of 2006, I think, and then it launched in 2007. and then they finally shut it down, I guess, in what?
3 years after that.
Was it 2010?
No, it was 2008, was it not?
Oh, was it?
No, I don't know. I
don't
can't
know.
remember.
I don't remember. All I know is that
we
when
were
they sacked
basically
me,
drunk for 3 years trying to make it
when
work.
they sacked me, I said that it wouldn't last, and it didn't last more than about.
No, and you left me. You left me floundering.
Well, I didn't leave voluntarily. I did actually leave because I was asked to leave, and then I had to come back down to Britain.
There's a tiny bit of a pattern there, isn't there?
Well, yeah, I've been fired 5 times, you know, but it's never been my fault.
No,
that's the thing, you know. But so literally 3 or 4 days before we were due to launch this station, this whole room was empty. There was nothing in it, and I said to Pooch, "We are supposed to be starting on Monday." He went, "Oh yeah." He said, "I'm just going to come here." There he is. There's Pooch.
Hello.
This is my good friend
Lovely
Lee,
to meet you.
Coleman. I'm just
Hi.
telling you the story of how you built this whole thing in about 24 hours.
Yeah.
And I came in on the Saturday before we better do a little bit of a dry run.
Yeah.
So we just try and see if we can put out a live stream. And I walked in and he'd put all this, soundproofing up. He'd got plants.
Can you
he'd
come to
got
Guernsey and
all
redo
these
my house?
desks.
I'd be delighted.
Okay,
to.
we're going to make this work
he's
then.
literally, I mean...
Come see the studio next door as well.
Yeah, he's got the one next door. I mean, he'll
I
do
will.
things like, he'll say, "So what did you do this weekend?" "I built a conservatory." "Did you?" "All right,
Has
then."
he?
Well, no, but that's the kind of thing he does. You know, he just sort of builds things. And so he's built this, and it's been brilliant.
Well, you
because-
all have, and bravo, well done.
Thank you.
Because this is
We're very
formidable.
pleased. We are very pleased. And he's just, I mean, this morning he built a website, right, for UK Live.
What's the website?
It's UK Live Online, isn't it?
.co.uk, yeah.
.co.uk,
Donald's store.
and in fact, if you, some people have said they're still struggling to find how to switch over, but
Yeah.
basically you've seen it there. There it is, ukliveonline.co.uk. If you go there, you can watch the live stream, presumably,
Go over to Galvin.
and watch Kelvin Mackenzie, who's coming up, or you can also go to YouTube and watch it there.
Live?
And we're building this kind of, we're trying hopefully to build what we think is going to be the most. Is Pooch Amish? Maybe.
You're building an empire. That's what you're doing. It's very
We're building
exciting.
a new channel, the most exciting news channel in Britain, we think, and obviously accessible around the world. I had a great story the other day from my sister in Connecticut, who was in some bar in the middle of nowhere, a place called North Guilford in Connecticut, just north of where she lived. And she goes in, and the guy behind the bar says, "Oh, you're English?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he says, "It's terrible there, isn't it? Awful. There's places overrun with immigrants, and socialists are running the government, and it's there's violence on the streets.
What a
people
time to be alive.
killing each other with machetes." And she goes, "How do you know so much about what's going on in Britain?" And he goes, "I watched this guy on YouTube, and turns out it was me."
Yeah.
And she's like, "I'm his brother. Oh, I'm his sister even. Well, she's my brother." But yeah. So what are you doing here?
I am actually here to see you.
Yeah, she's here to
predominantly.
see me. She's going to ask you some questions, Pooch,
Yes,
as well.
we're going backwards. I want to get in on the back end of this.
Yes.
You know how much of
Yes.
a fan I am of
I
that.
know.
Yes, but I also came prepared. You ready for this? You like this? You have to keep this. I got these for Wimbledon. We went to Wimbledon last year
Oh, yeah.
because I was terrified that it was going to be 35 degrees here
It was
today.
pretty hot this year,
It's
wasn't it?
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, here's a little lovely.
A lovely fan.
It's my biggest fan.
That would be very good.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it's got Lynn on it as well.
Well, you
'Cause
know.
Lynn's a bit of a fashionista. She's got her own little cashmere company.
She's beautifully dressed.
I know.
Thanks.
And,
That's a very kind thing to say.
Yeah, she very kindly invited me to Wimbledon last year, twice in the same week,
Yes.
which was rather good. Although the second time we didn't watch much of the tennis, it was awful. It was the women's final, which was 6-love, 6-love, and I think we went straight back to the bar after the first set.
We did. I enjoyed the tennis, but I also enjoyed the champagne too. And
The
then I went
champagne
back
was good.
this weekend or last weekend, and it wasn't the same without you.
No.
We got papped in Centre Court last year. I didn't get papped this year
No.
because I wasn't with any. I was with very huge, heavy-hitting journalists,
Right.
but none clearly as salubrious as you.
No, absolutely not. Quite right too. What are we? Any chance of? We got the Anne tribute. All right, let's do that because that would be great.
Okay, I'm going to do it now. I'll tell you 1 second. Give me 2 seconds.
Let's go.
Hold on.
No, nearly there. Not mine.
I mean, what can you do?
Talk amongst
You're
yourselves.
lucky to have
we
Pooch
shall.
fixing
Right, so I want
So,
a full
are
studio
you here
tour
just
after
for the
this.
day?
I'm here specifically to see how this works.
Right.
So we'll pop the hood, and then can we go for a boozy lunch, or do you have to work?
We can, but I've got to work later, but I've probably got to drop the car home and then
Okay.
come back and meet you.
Fine.
Can we do that?
Let's do that.
All right.
Where should we go for lunch?
Where do you have to get back to? City?
City.
So probably Borough Market then.
Okay, delicious.
Sounds good.
That's perfect.
Sounds like a
Well,
plan.
we've sorted lunch. Now
got
what?
it?
Let's try.
Offence or from insult or from hurt feelings. And if you really can't take it, become a hermit.
Widdy Weekly, what a good name, I have to say. We're delighted to say that Anne Widdicombe is going to join us every single Monday. She's going to share our thoughts with her own Substack members, and we are going to have a sort of, what can only be described as a collaboration. Anne, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Let's talk to Anne Widdicombe, who of course is a woman who knows everything about straight answers to straight questions. Anne, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Time to say a very good morning and a very happy Monday, the 13th of April, to Anne Widdicombe. Anne, very good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning to you.
You can call it Widdy Weekly. It's Anne Widdicombe, the voice of common sense, on the true home of common sense. Anne, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you too, Mike.
Well, Anne Widdicombe, just the person we need to speak to on such an auspicious day. This from Lance has just come in. Can you get Anne to tell us about her Morris Minor convertible? I'm sure she'd love to. Do you have a Morris Minor convertible?
No, what he is thinking of is when I was young, my very first car was a Morris Minor. Which I then kept for about 13 years, and I sold it for 6 times as much as I paid for it. Here's my owl, yes.
We have a preponderance of herons here in the studio, so obviously the bird theme has reached your West Country home. What's the owl signifying?
I just like owls. I've got an owl clock in my kitchen, and I've got owls on my cushions. I just like owls. The one who nags me most is my cat. But,
yes, I mean, well, you become a prisoner of your cat, don't you, if you're not careful?
Well, certainly he's the boss in this household. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Excellent. What's his name?
Aloysius.
Aloysius. What a great name for a cat. Well done. Well, Anne, as ever, great to see you.
You know, we had this business recently of last night's wonderful game. And the
Did
police...
you stay up?
No, certainly not. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I love hearing everybody else's enthusiasm, but
Yes.
not a couple of decades ago, my garden shed was burgled and they stole a strimmer. You know, I mean, it was not the end of the world. The police came and looked at it. They didn't actually do anything. They said, well, we think there's been another burglary, and they didn't, you know, look for fingerprints to see if they could match that to the other burglary. But what did they offer me? They offered me counselling for the loss of the strimmer. They offered me counselling. And when I roared with laughter, sarcastic laughter, they said, well, sorry, but we have to do this.
Pretty much sums it all up for you, really, doesn't it? Anne, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Remember Magna Carta, remember innocent until proved guilty, and let the law take its course.
Let us say a very happy bank holiday. Oh, look at this. Bank holiday Monday to Anne Widdicombe. Look at you. Morning.
Well, I was told, Mike, that you were going to be in a Hawaiian shirt. I didn't believe it. I switched on and you were. So I thought, well, I must get into the spirit of this.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely brilliant. Fantastic. Great hat, by the way, and fantastic sunglasses. But
I noticed the other day I made a journey on, it was a mixture of Great Western Railway and cross country. And everything went to time, and I got all the connections, and I actually thought this was a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Instead of taking it for granted.
I know.
You know, I was actually telling everybody, oh, it worked.
Yes.
I mean, for heaven's sake, there was a time when we would have been scandalised if it didn't work.
Exactly.
Now, you know, it's like saying when you come back from holiday, oh, good, we haven't been burgled. You know, it's accepting the lowest possible standard.
Yeah. What's he trying? Is he trying to make us like him? Because it's not working.
He's trying to show that he's got a sense of humour. In fact, he's got very little sense of humour. He's got some, but he's got very, very little sense of humour. My big beef with Starmer, in case anybody forgets, is that when he was the Director of Public Prosecutions, he was the one who began. I mean, you know, Alison Saunders then took it to the ends of the earth, but he was the one who began the whole business of, if somebody says they've been assaulted, you believe them. you believe them. I think once people realise they're not just lovable tree huggers, they're actually very, very serious neo-communists, I think there'll be a completely different reaction. We have confused tolerating other people's beliefs with surrendering our own.
No.
So these sorts of interviews, and I really hope the sort of work that you're doing catches on, these sort of interviews are hugely useful.
What a sensible woman, so terribly sensible woman. What a woman, what an amazing woman, and a great clip, that great series of clips all together. Brilliant to see you.
Lovely to see you.
Now we're having lunch apparently.
And then let's go and toast that lovely woman.
Yeah, absolutely right. And we will toast her. So thanks to Charlotte, thanks to all the guests we had today, Ted Newsom, Siobhan White, Robert Ridgely, David Vance, Colin Sutton, brilliant. Will Geddes, who was here for a long time, Godfrey Bloom, Russell Quirk, Richard Tice, of course, this morning as well, who was in, and Lee Nalalingam. We'll be back tomorrow at 7. Don't forget, don't do anything stupid.